Oh,
Meow, meow. Look, it's a kitty face.
This stream is not intended for children. It will contain strong language and adult content.
well, I should probably mute this.
Oh, that's an idea. Yeah.
So, how's everybody doing?
Well, I was pretty shitty this morning, but I'm doing better now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good thing.
Improvement.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if anyone saw my most recent video, but I was all stuffy and gross.
No, I didn't. I didn't turn that one on yet. That's the unboxing one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't.
Wait, you did an unboxing?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm sorry, this isn't my stream. We shouldn't be talking about my videos, but I'm just saying.
That's okay.
Oh, why not?
No, I'm just wait a minute. Aren't you usually the one who's like, I don't get unboxing videos? That's why I was like, oh.
I know what I don't understand is why people like them, but they do, and so I make them.
Well,
I don't get it either, but you know.
I don't understand why people watch them, but you know, yours are something a little different. You know, if somebody who watches your stuff is sending you a present, then opening it up on camera is a nice way to thank them.
Exactly.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah, but I mean, like when other people they just bring home a toy or they ordered something and then they open it up and people just yum up those videos and I don't know why.
Yeah, I see those a lot on the toy collector channels and that. It's like, okay, maybe if it's like a vintage one that's really hard to find, it could be interesting. But if it's one anybody could go down to Walmart and pick up, what's the big deal?
Well,
I mean, the only thing I can think of is someone out there might be wanting to buy it, but they're on the fence. Should I spend the money? Let me see what someone else does and if it's the thing I actually want.
Yeah, well, that's more like just doing product reviews.
Now, would I get any views if I unboxed a cat?
Probably,
depends.
actually.
That really
I
depends.
would watch.
Okay.
I would watch.
Well,
no, I have at least one.
I have found that the cats are amazingly good at unboxing themselves.
Yes, but my question is this Schrodinger's box? Is it Schrodinger's cat?
Oh, there's an idea for you. There's an idea.
So, I mean, if you unbox a cat, it might be awesome and it might be very tragic.
Yes, it might.
It may or may not be Schrodinger's cat.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one I really like was the one I saw a couple of years ago, Schrodinger's Messiah.
I see where you're going with that.
Schrodinger's phone. Like when you drop your phone and it's and you think it might be broken and it's face down on the ground and it's both broken and not broken until you pick it up and flip it over.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's one that people these days would understand better.
Well, I mean, I had a phone, like I sit down to use the toilet, and when I take down, when I drop trow, the cell phone squirted out of my pocket.
Oh no.
And kabam, and the screen cracks, which is why now I've like triple bagged this phone.
Okay then.
Hey, we've got Bub in the side chat. So
yes, we do.
Say hi. So he says he'll probably be discharged in the morning.
Oof.
Oh, why are you in the hospital?
Bowel obstruction, I think is what you're saying.
Well, at least it's not the cerveza virus.
Am
I really the only one who thinks that's funny?
No, I like it. I like it.
I don't think I got
No, I didn't hear you.
Cerveza, cerveza is beer. Corona is a beer. Coronavirus, cerveza virus. You see,
I don't drink beer, so I didn't know cerveza was a beer.
No. Cerveza is Spanish for beer.
Ah, okay.
And Corona, I believe, is from Mexico.
Yep.
So
I'm pretty darn sure it is. Yeah.
I
don't drink beer either, unless it's root or ginger. I don't drink beer.
I do not get people out here literally not drink. Like people literally like the beer, like Corona, but they won't buy it and drink it because of the coronavirus. I'm like, how stupid.
I don't get that. What
I
the
don't
hell?
either.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of videos on people claiming that the virus doesn't even exist, that it's all a marketing scam for the beer.
Oh, jeez.
That's
But
Yeah,
it
what
backfired pretty
kind
hard,
of marketing
didn't it?
strategy is that to
Mhm.
link your product to something that could kill you?
So did you guys see that tweet I put out? Well, some of you might have. I put out a tweet about the coronavirus outbreak in Georgia. I was walking down an aisle and 2 cases of Corona had fell and spilled out on the floor.
That's good.
Guess what?
no.
Guess what was reported in Georgia the very fucking next day?
Dare I ask?
Coronavirus in my home county.
Mm. I actually saw a tweet from Weird Al. We were talking about Weird Al earlier, saying that he would not do My Corona.
Okay.
Well, he's famous
That
for My
might be-
Corona,
yeah,
the
that
parody of
might
My
be-
Sharona.
Indeed. That might be wise to not do my Corona. I don't know. I mean, some of us would like it, yes, but
It would amuse me, but I like dark humor.
mhm.
I actually got to meet Weird Al.
Yeah?
Really?
Yeah, my stepdaughter was a big fan, and he was playing at the Minnesota Fairgrounds. So I took her to the concert. Actually, a friend of mine wound up getting us a couple of tickets. And after the show, it had kind of cleared out, and I noticed some people milling around one of the side gates. So we went over to see what that was, and apparently there was a promoter from one of the local radio stations giving away backstage passes.
Oh.
And my stepdaughter had this curly hair that was all frizzed out, and he said, "You look like you're related to him. Come on back here."
Oh, God. You should, like if I were to
We
mow
got to
my
go
head
back and-
entirely
Yeah.
and let it grow out naturally, I would look just like Weird Al, at least hair-wise.
Yeah, so we got to go back in his trailer and meet him, and I've got a signed copy of Bad Hair Day from it.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. No, my head fur will turn into Jufro if I let it. So, yeah, seriously, like if I grew it down to my shoulders and then blurred out my face and Weird Al's face and just, had the picture cut off at the neck, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
My hair is so light and limp that just walking down the hallway, the static electricity lifts it up and sends it all different directions.
One of these days I need
Okay.
to try those Van de Graaff generator things where you put your hands on it and your hair.
Yeah. Just make sure you don't touch a metal filing cabinet or anything like that. Knock you seriously and knock you across the room. Those things are
Well,
potent.
maybe it'll give me superpowers.
Okay. Well, you've already got. Never mind.
I mean, flying or lightning eyes or something. You know what I mean. Don't
Sloth
make
Girl's
me
already
go there.
rallying up the crowd, take it off. So,
Well, all right.
although I think most everybody here already got to see it. Hey, I'm not responsible for the broken monitors. Although I have to seriously adjust the headset to fit now without that thing on. And where did I put my actual glasses?
You have helmet
What,
hair.
they weren't, I thought I saw them inside the
That's what I
mask.
thought.
there.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the way the mask is made, I can't put it on over my glasses. So I actually glued a set of the lenses from an old pair of glasses into it. So that's just an older prescription, and yeah, things don't focus quite so well.
I was going to ask how
clever
badly
enough.
they. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there you go. This is what
I've
you get.
said it before. I'll say it again. You don't look too far off from what I pictured from your voice and your avatar.
Yeah, well, the avatar was done by Paul Gia. I actually sent him a photograph of myself and a photograph of the Triceratops at the Minnesota Science Museum and said, "Can you morph these two together?"
He did a pretty good job. He really did.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
how it's very obvious you have a beard in your avatar, and I can't remember, but somebody said that they didn't know that you had a beard.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I
no.
was wondering about that one, about who missed that.
I don't remember who it was yesterday.
I don't remember many dinosaur recreations of them having beards.
No, but I mean, there's very obviously beards in your avatars. Like, it's not very hidden.
Uh-huh.
Well, that was the thing.
Yeah,
Like,
he even got the coloration of the, right amount of salt and pepper with it.
well, that was the thing. Like when I saw you yesterday, I was like, I should have known the beard color because that was the same beard color on the avatar.
See, that's the funny thing is my beard's going all gray, but the color on top really hasn't changed.
Just give it some time. I did the same thing back when I had facial hair. That went, and then the head hair went. I really didn't start getting really gray until about, on the head hair, until about what, 2013?
Yeah.
It's not that long ago.
Well, you know
Well,
what's funny? Well, go on.
Yeah, my father actually didn't go gray until it was growing back after his second round of chemo.
Well,
But he still managed to grow it all back. It just came back gray instead of black.
Well, one thing that's kind of funny is like before you did the whole unmasking thing, there's this guy I know in San Diego. And honestly, I pictured this guy, if you can share the screen, because apparently that's required. I pictured this guy from your avatar.
Ah!
Okay. Yeah.
Could be related, for Christ's sake, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I say, not too far off from
Yeah,
the
not far
reality.
off. Yeah, I've gotten the Willie Nelson thing, and a couple of years ago at a bar, I did a Willie Nelson for a costume contest. And I actually got the popular vote, but in the small town up there, yeah, the prize went to the judge's cousin.
Oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had several people come up and tell me I got cheated out of it. That I had the most authentic looking costume.
LAYM lame.
Yep. Well,
creative misspelling.
actually, when I was in my 30s, most people told me I looked like Jesus. And that was fun hanging around with the pagan groups because, the best one was like I was driving, so I dropped everybody off at the door and went to park the car. And a couple of people came up to them and said, have you found Jesus? And they said, yeah, he's parking the car. He'll be there in a minute. And when I walked up, I had no idea what was going on, but their jaws just dropped.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I'm trying to think, like there's gotta be an extra joke in there somewhere. Something about iron chariots, maybe. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's the theory I'm working under, that, if the rapture happens, as long as I'm driving a car that has a steel frame, I should be safe.
Mm-hmm.
They're always talking about the rapture, but they never mention like the metalture or the puncture or the hip-hopture or the operature even. It's always the rapture.
It's always the rapture, and rap is just so crappy. I know.
But, personally, I can't wait for the rapture because, I'm all ready to go around and collect up all the great stuff that the Christians leave behind.
Yeah.
I would be glad
will be
to
a
not
very
have Christians around anymore. There's a couple of exceptions to that, like Mom NATO, but
yeah.
I keep hearing conflicting ideas of what the rapture will actually do. Like, because some people say, oh, yeah, the Christians will be, gone, whatever. But then the world itself will end up getting burned. Like, it won't be, oh, yay, Earth to ourselves, woohoo. That it's like somehow we will suffer because we weren't raptured because something horrible happens to the Earth.
Yeah, and I think that depends on, which branch of Christians you ask.
The one
about what's going to happen to the world that's left behind.
The one I remembered was that, the good little Christians would be hoovered up into the clouds, and then the earth would get left to Satan's devices for 1,000 years.
So I'm just picturing Satan's devices. Here's a cell phone with horns on it. You know, here's
Yes.
a red finger. It's Satan's devices, you know.
I just had
Oh.
an unsettling thought. What if it's
Mhm.
about to happen, and by Satan's devices, they mean that Trump will become our dictator for 1,000 years?
Oh.
No.
That's all. No.
No.
That's already the case. No,
See, I'd like to believe
don't
that
get me
Trump
started.
will like repent at the last second and be carried off with the rest of them.
Okay, I gotta step away for a second.
Okay, I will take that if and only if I get left behind.
Oh no, I'm right there with you. Although
Yeah.
when you think about it, like they always talk about heaven as paradise, you know. But what if it's not my paradise? You know,
Mhm.
what if
See-
it's not me with my own personal spaceship, a shit ton of video games, and the hottest lesbian harem ever? What if it's robes and harps and halos? I will be bored to shit. Paradise my butt.
See, I used to read a webcomic that had a very interesting take on heaven, and what their take on heaven was that everybody had their own little pocket of heaven, and it was personalized to them. So you got what you wanted, and Diane. Well, I couldn't remember your name for a second. Diane could get hers.
Thanks a lot. I love you too.
No, I do that. Like I'll be looking at
Hey,
somebody.
Sammy.
And I'll be trying to say their name, and I'm just like, I know your name, but it will not come out of my mouth.
I know that feeling.
I have that happen.
And the way that they explain heaven for other people is like, okay, Diane, you've got your own personal heaven, and anyone that you would want to be in your heaven, a part of them is in your heaven, but they're also in everyone else's heaven that they would want to be with. And they're experiencing it all at once. So if Kate wanted you in her heaven, you would be in her heaven, in her example of heaven, and also in yours, in your example of heaven, and experiencing both at the same time.
Seems kind
Okay,
of
but
schizo.
What
Yeah.
happens? What happens if somebody wants me in their heaven and I don't want to be there?
Mm. Well,
That's one
someone
of my
else.
big problems with heaven.
That's a thought.
Well, someone else pointed out something where they're like, what if someone is married and their spouse dies like early, and then like years later they get married again and decades go by?
Yep.
Like they meet their loved ones again in heaven, but do they now have a harem? What if the two wives don't get along? You
Hey,
know?
Tria, what give us the dope on that one, would you?
Yeah, that is a Mormon.
Actually, that's one of the ones I asked the
we've
priest
been-
when I was like, 12 years old that I never got a good answer to.
We were told that God would work it all out.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And every time they told me that, I had images because I never met my biological grandmother. I never met her. She passed away before I was born. But I knew my step grandmother, and she was like the best grandmother ever, but she had a temper on her. And my dad said, "You know that temper that your grandmother had?" I said, "Yeah." Dad goes, "My mom, my biological mom, had 3 times the amount of that temper. And those two women hated each other." And I said, "Is Pa married to both of them?" Did he get married to both of them in the temple? And Dad was like, "Yup." And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, oh, God's got a lot on his hands. That is going to be hell to figure out.
Well, what about people that die early? Like, are you a baby in heaven forever?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
They kind
We got
of
that
give
whole
the
thing.
image of they kind of give the image of when you see pictures of the premortal existence in Mormonism, it's often depicted as teenagers. And not like the young teenagers, like the 16, 17 age, not like the, 13, 14. So you kind of get the idea that you're not a little child in heaven after you die.
But even 16-year-olds can still be all like nothing but zits and hormones. And like, I wouldn't want to be 16 again, let alone forever.
Yeah,
That's fair. I'm just letting you know that it's pretty much implied that after you die, you are not a little child.
See, I'd rather be 10 years old forever. That would be awesome.
I don't know.
I
have to imagine that if you're in heaven, everything's perfect. So you're a 16-year-old, but you don't have the raging. I mean, why 16? Why not like 21, 22? Some type.
Well, okay.
You can drink in heaven.
Part of it is they really push you always hear the premortal existence bullshit growing up, but they really push it when you turn into a teenager.
Yeah.
Like they ramp all of these teachings up to 11 when you hit
but
upper
part
middle
of the problem
school
is
and high school.
what about people who know you in different capacities? Because okay, maybe your parents want to see you as a teenager, but isn't that going to kind of weird out your kids?
I mean, especially if you have that weird schizo quintuple life where you are everyone else's version of you in their heaven, and it's like, okay, well, what if your parents thought you were the best infant ever? And that's what they want you to be. Meanwhile, your spouse or whatever wants you to be the best 35-year-old ever. That's gotta be fucked up to experience.
The thing is that Supernatural took that idea and they made it make a little bit more sense. It's pretty much the way that they had it was, for most people, they take your best memories and you're just living your memories. So you're living in your own head. It's not splitting people up. It's you are in your own room and you are in your own head. And so you're reliving the best parts of your life over and over again.
But I thought other people experienced you too, but their version of you. And yet you somehow are able to be that you. I don't understand. Yeah.
Well, there's no explaining any of this.
It's like 5-dimensional math.
Yeah, but if you're just reliving your memories.
Well, I mean, there's the thing. It's, okay, maybe I'm reliving my memories, but I'm also reliving someone else's memories, or someone else is reliving their memories of me and all this other horse shit. Yeah, it gets really, really, really. And I wasn't even a Mormon, for Christ's sake. It was bad enough when I was growing up.
Okay, but the thing is that what y'all are talking about is not what Mormon heaven is.
Yeah.
Okay, but what if I don't want someone to have access to me in their heaven? What if I hated them with the white hot fury of 1,000 suns, and I want to essentially do like a Facebook block where they can't access me?
Because here's the thing. This is the way Mormon heaven works is pretty shit. It's basically there are tiers, and the only one that is really defined is the celestial kingdom. And it's basically the guy creates universes and the woman is barefoot and pregnant for eternity. That is Mormon heaven.
Hey.
Yeah.
And those of you who know me know that there is no way in hell I would be happy with that at all.
Yeah.
The whole Mormon thing aside, that was one of the first flaws I saw in the concept of heaven, was because my eldest brother's idea of heaven would involve all of us being there as a family and having a great time and all this, and basically one of our family gatherings. And for me, that would be a living hell.
Mm-hmm.
So there can be no version of heaven that both he and I would both be happy with.
But you have to. I mean, not that. I mean, if we're going to be consistent with the thought process of heaven, period, you are your perfect you in heaven. You're not going to have anxiety and depression and bipolar disorder and anything that makes being around other people uncomfortable for you.
Whoa. No, there's a
What if
problem.
you're uncomfortable
Yeah.
around them?
Without
not
the
going to
autism
be.
and anxiety, I wouldn't be myself.
Right.
Yeah, I was headed there. Yeah, I
That's
was
also.
No, wait a minute. Okay, there's.
I don't know.
I keep forgetting that I have to reverse the pointing direction. There,
Yeah.
there you go. But yeah, I mean, without severe clinical depression, I would not be me. So
But
I'm stripped of my identity in that heaven.
Well,
I see. I don't necessarily think that that's true. I mean, you become who you are. But imagine if they suddenly had a cure for depression and autism and all these things, and you took that cure, you'd still be you. You would no longer
Nope.
have those things, but you would still have the memories of having those things, and you
Nope.
would still remember the being that way.
I
would
would
think.
refuse to do it. Autism specifically. I
Mhm.
know my brain is wired differently from most people. It forces me to think and just experience the world differently.
well,
And
but
if you somehow cured that, you would fundamentally change the way I perceive the world.
but there are definitely some things about myself I'd love to edit.
Oh yeah, I mean, hey, it would be great to not have my fingers splitting open and have a backache all the time.
Oh no, I mean mentally, emotionally, because like I've tried to explain to people what it's like to experience frustration or rage in my head. Because it's not just in my head, it's a full-on physiological reaction when I'm either angry or frustrated. It feels like every pore on my body opens at once because all of a sudden my whole body is heating up, and I desperately need catharsis when I'm enraged, and that has caused me no end of problems. And I would love to have veto power over that reaction.
I think you've said such things. Yeah, described such things at me.
But it's hard for people to picture it if it doesn't happen to them. It'd be like trying to describe. I've tried to describe my seizures, and when I still had them, and nobody understands. Like nobody gets it. So,
what was that?
I don't know. It's just that I'm. The thought process, at least in my mind, is that you would still have your memories and you would still remember all the things that you've been through. But going forward, you wouldn't have those issues. So wouldn't that be? I mean, you'd still be you. You'd just be processing things differently, but you'd still remember what it was like before.
I mean, has there never been a mental, emotional problem that you somehow find yourself shed of all of a sudden, and you're like, "Oh, this is so much better"? Has that never happened?
The thing is, I have a lot of memories that are traumatic. There's no way I can think of that I could actually remember those things that built and shaped me and have it not be painful.
I don't know.
Because
somebody in the side chat's asking, so can I get... There we go.
Those things stay
This is what
forever.
the cold does to my fingers.
Oh, ouch.
Yikesies.
Yeah, like I say, it literally dries until the point that the skin splits open.
Ew.
This no for to the fun.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you, but somebody was asking in the side chat, and I wasn't even sure if I could get the camera to focus on that.
There's no way to do anything about that, I take it then.
I use a lot of hand lotion in the winter, and that's still the best I can do. You know, and it's like, and if I'm handling anything that tends to absorb moisture, like wood or cardboard, it just sucks the moisture out of my hands.
Yeah, I get that on the sides of my on not the tips, but the sides where it just dries out and starts peeling. because I'm handling money or things that are yeah. It's not fun. Usually end up with Band-Aids all over my fingers.
Yeah, Band-Aids don't stay on the fingers, so I've just part of what you were seeing there is I try to super glue them back together. That was actually a trick I got from a doctor in the ER after I hit my finger with a table saw.
Yep.
The super glue doesn't like seep in and cause problems?
Actually, he said it helps because the solvent in the super glue is actually an effective antibiotic.
Huh. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought it. I've had to
I
super
think
glue a
basically
few
it makes
things
the environment
recently.
too acidic for anything alive.
I've had to
Yeah,
super
that
glue a few
sounds
things recently, and
painful.
it got on my fingers, and it's weird how it heats up like that. I mean, it makes sense chemically, but it's still weird.
Yeah. It does sting initially going on, but once it hardens over it, then the nerves aren't exposed, so then it feels better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and don't they have like they're starting to introduce like liquid Band-Aids, which is basically just a lesser super glue that you can paint onto a cut.
Yeah,
Well,
they've had those for a while now.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they have surgical glue. That's
I
definitely.
actually find the super glue from the dollar store is more effective than what they sell as the liquid Band-Aids.
Yeah, I've had similar things happen. Like it's weird how much better the store brand generic shit sometimes is than the real product. Like
Yep.
there's cereals, just breakfast cereals that are so much better. Like the Kroger Ralph's brand is so much better than like Post or Kellogg's sometimes.
My
Yep.
It's
favorite
not universal, but
Malto meal, the Malto meal cereals.
Oh, I remember those.
Yep.
I get those at Walmart. My favorite is the Malto meal Fruity Pebbles. Tastes like Fruity Pebbles, and then you get this nice after like weedy taste or something to it, or whatever that material is.
That's one of the things I missed moving back to the Midwest. Was in New York, we had Wegmans, which is a chain of grocery stores. They're in like 12 states on the East Coast. But they don't have any stores like west of Ohio. And their store brand stuff for everything. I never found one product of their store brand that wasn't at least as good as the national brands.
Well, I mean,
and significantly cheaper.
I mean, Wegmans doesn't exist in Vermont, but I went to school in Rochester, New York, and I remember Wegmans very well.
Yeah. They also have been, for like the last 15, 18 years, consistently been listed as one of the 500 best companies in the country to work for.
Nice.
So they treat their employees really well.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird some of the names they give to stores. Like, it still knocks me out that there's genuinely a store out there called Piggly Wiggly.
I was going to bring that up. I live in the South. I live in Georgia, and from California, and we were driving out here to move out here, and we drove by a Piggly Wiggly, and I said, "What the fuck? They're real? I thought those were just made up for driving Miss Daisy."
No.
Oh, see, I first encountered it in Close Encounter. Well, wow, ironic. In Close Encounters of the Third Kind was the first place I encountered it, because they were loading a bunch of equipment to take it to the Devil's Tower or whatever into like commercial trucks, and one of them said Piggly Wiggly on the side, and I'm like, what the frig is that? Because I didn't know it was a grocery store. They never make mention of that part. It just did that. For all I knew, it was a fast food joint.
Yeah, they have them in Wisconsin, so I was aware they exist.
One
of the worst named companies was where we were living in Michigan, and it's like, I understand people use their last name for the company name, but sometimes it's not a good idea. This guy should not have named his company Shamco.
Alrighty.
That was actually the name of the place, because it was an Irishman and his last name was Sham.
Well, it kind of reminds me of, you ever watch How I Met Your Mother?
Occasionally.
Because there was this one dude wanted to start his own beer company. Unfortunately, his last name was Wampus. You know, so he would say, have a nice glass of Wampus. You know, I mean, obviously it's a sitcom, so they could just make that shit up, but it wouldn't shock me to discover someone out there has an unfortunate name like that. Yeah.
Well, in that case, you just mutated a little bit, and you tell people to open a fresh can of whoop ass.
Well, I'm surprised there isn't already a drink called that.
Yeah, it would be something like Red Bull with 4 times the caffeine.
Right. Well, that was another thing in How I Met Your Mother. They had this weapons grade caffeine drink called Tantrum.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's that whole thing where it's like they drink one and go, tantrum. And at one point, Marshall rips a phone book in half after drinking some. And yeah. One of the things they showed in like sort of a documentary style description of Tantrum was like laboratory mice literally exploding. I love How I Met Your Mother. That is such a great show.
What did you think of the ending, though?
Well, I mean, it was a little disappointing, but, you know, I kind of saw it coming too, so it wasn't that bad. Like I know a lot of people object to it, and I know a lot of people flipped out at the ending of Dexter, too, for similar reasons, but I saw what they were trying to do, and I was okay with it.
I never saw How I Met Your Mother ended. It's just
I
something kind of. I saw a couple episodes in the middle of the run.
I don't want to spoil it.
If the wedding hadn't been an entire season, I think that ending would have worked a lot better for me.
Like if you'd seen more of Ted and Tracy together?
Yeah, if you'd seen more of Ted and Tracy together and less of Barney and I can't remember Robin together. If you had, I think that ending actually would have worked and been okay had they done it that way.
Well, I mean, Barney and Robin clearly made no sense whatsoever as a couple. It was just weird, right? And so having a whole season about their wedding, instead of getting them married in the first third of a season, then watching the marriage fall apart while Ted and Tracy's marriage gets going, I mean, that would have made much more sense for the final season.
Yeah, because honestly, I didn't question the whole Barney and Robin really like each other thing, but I think they took that way too far, and it kind of fizzled everything else out afterwards.
Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, as a couple, they do work together for short periods of time. But when you get them too serious and you focus too much on them, you mess everything up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I could see them as a couple. I couldn't see them getting married.
And I mean, Barney did go to some great lengths to like impress her with like the ice rink thing, right? But at the same time, that seemed to be all he had was these big, huge impressive gestures. But he doesn't strike anyone as someone who can commit, does he?
Yeah, no. And the funny thing is the only way he can commit is after something else comes along later on, which I'm not going to say because people haven't seen the ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as far as spoilers that goes, I mean, if it's something that's been over with for more than a year, I don't really think spoilers are a thing anymore.
Well, honestly, if someone had spoiled the ending for me, I would have been kind of grouchy.
Okay.
So, I mean,
that's fine. I'm not saying you have to, but I'm just saying at this point, I don't think it's a big deal.
Unless I'm in a forum where I can put a spoiler tag and be like, it's not my fault if you click this shit, I tend not to say too many spoilers.
Well, I was kind of pissy when someone posted the trailer for the next season of Stranger Things, which had a thumbnail that revealed a lot that I didn't want to know. Unfortunately, the trailer tells you even more about that thing I didn't want to know. And I'm really pissed about that. And now I realize it's not the fault of the person who posted the trailer, but still, I was like, that's a spoiler where, okay, I suspected it was so, but I didn't want to know it until I watched it, damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this really bad habit of trailers just giving away everything.
Yeah.
Practically. Like they use all the best clips from the program or the movie in the trailer, so you're not surprised by anything. And then I heard that it was so egregious with one movie. I guess it was like a sequel. And in the end of the first one, they thought they had killed a character, and then they put him in the supposedly dead guy in the very first seconds of the trailer. It's like, how is that supposed to be something you build up to in the movie?
Well,
Yeah.
all they care about is butts on seats, you know.
Mhm.
And so it doesn't matter to the executives if they put spoilers in the trailers. That's why if I ever find myself in the position of being like directing a film or something, I'm going to insist on a certain amount of trailer approval just to make sure there's no spoilers. They'll probably say no, but I'll be like, okay, tell you what, if my salary is $1 million, I'll give up at least half of it to have trailer approval.
Mhm.
Because honestly, to me, you know, $500,000 versus $1 million, I don't care. I wouldn't be in it for the money. I'd be in it for the art, for the craft, for the storytelling. So I wouldn't care. You know, it's kind of like one of the only reasons the studio ever greenlit Star Wars was because George Lucas said, I want the merchandising rights and you can have my salary. And they thought it was silly because up to then, no movie had marketed like toys and stuff the way Star Wars did. But seriously, like I can understand wanting to give up your salary in the name of your art. I get that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's one of the reasons why, like, working on my animations the way I am right now, I realize I'm not going to make much money off of the narrative fiction I want to produce, but I want to produce it because I want to make the damn thing. I've wanted to make my own, like, movie, be it animated or live action, since forever. And right now I have the power, the ability, the equipment, the software to do it. And it's going to be a long ass slog to make it, but it'll be worth it in the end, even if it doesn't like take off on my channel or whatever.
No, I agree with you though on the artistic thing. You know, I'd feel the same way that, you know, if they wanted to make a movie out of a story I wrote, I would be really leery of, you know, if I didn't have a lot of control over them making any kind of edits.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've heard of some like studio interference that made movies so much shittier. And apparently part of it was just test audiences did or didn't like something. But I hear about the actual ending to I Am Legend, the Will Smith version, and I'm like, that would have made a much better story. So,
well, like the novel I'm working on right now, I know for sure that movie executives would not like the ending. They would want to change it.
and
it's like, nope.
Well, I mean, I Am Legend doesn't even make sense anymore, the way the studios changed it.
Yeah.
I have never seen it. Not interested.
I've seen the movie. I don't know what the ending of the book was.
Well, I mean, the Will Smith movie, nothing like the book. I mean, seriously, it's barely even close. And I've watched the Omega Man, which is basically, I mean, it's based on the same work. I've never seen the Vincent Price version, but originally it was supposed to be about vampires. That was the original story. And in the Will Smith version, they're a lot closer to like zombies, but mutated zombies. Whereas in the Omega Man, it was just a bunch of infected humans that couldn't stand sunlight. So, I mean, no version of I Am Legend is really all that similar to any other version, although the Vincent Price movie came the closest to the original book. But the ending for the Will Smith movie was supposed to be a much more interesting, in-depth, like I almost want to say poignant ending, but test audiences hated it, so they tried to make it a happier ending, and it didn't work.
And I've heard of, several movies that's happened, that, audience didn't respond well because it wasn't a happy ending. So they changed it so it, was a more upbeat ending. And it's like, then it seemed like the last scene didn't really connect to the rest of the movie at all.
I mean, granted, I prefer a happy ending most of the time, but there are times where there are some very, very strong exceptions. I mean, okay, you could legitimately say that the end of V for Vendetta was a happy ending, but like originally part of me desperately wanted to know what V's actual identity was, because that sounds interesting. But by the end of the movie, I was like, I don't care that they never told us who he really was, like before what happened to him happened. I'm actually totally okay with it.
Yeah.
And there have been some, I won't say depressing endings, let's say dark endings to movies where I'm like, that is so much better than what it could have been if it had been a happy ending. It's rare, but it happens.
An example of that I like to give is, and I don't know how well people think this movie, but From Hell.
Don't know it.
It was the Johnny Depp Jack the Ripper movie from a bunch of years ago.
Okay.
It was basically the plot was this, Jack the Ripper, but Johnny Depp played this character who was doing this newfangled forensic science to try and figure out who the Ripper was. And big spoilers, warning, spoilers. He dies in the end. He finds out who the killer is, and the killer is someone big, but rather than having a happy ending where he gets the girl and the baby and they go off and they live together, he dies of a cocaine overdose because he knows if he goes to the woman, they'll find her and they'll kill her and the baby. And the baby's important.
Is the woman Jack the Ripper?
No, the woman is not Jack the Ripper. The woman, apparently the Jack the Ripper was some doctor for the king or the queen because her son was having illegitimate children with prostitutes, and the prostitute was either Catholic or Protestant. And so the baby would have been Catholic or Protestant, and he didn't have any children. So the Ripper was going around and killing the prostitutes in order to get to the woman who he had the baby with. He finds the woman and the baby and falls in love with her and sends them someplace safe. And in the end of the movie, instead of going to her and being with her because they've fallen in love with each other, he stays in London because he knows that the guy who is Jack the Ripper is watching him. And if he goes to her, the woman and the child could die. So he sacrifices himself for the good of the woman and the baby.
And the whole sacrificing yourself for the good of others thing is sometimes a decent ending. Okay, an ending that a lot of people were very pissed off by was the ending of Dexter. But I kind of knew that there was a shitty ending coming when I watched the series because I was watching it way late. So when I got to it, I actually watched the ending expecting to be disappointed. And I actually thought that it was a really good, nasty ending. And that's because basically Dexter ends up in his own personal hell at the end of it. And as lame as it seems in the execution, when I was done watching it, I was like, oh, ouch. Oh, ouch. That sucks so hard for him. Because for those who don't know, I mean, Dexter plays this sort of psychopath who was taught by his cop father to kill other serial killers instead of innocent people, right? And by the end of it, of the series, he starts to normalize a bit to where he can be a regular person with other people where before he couldn't. But because his identity as this serial killer was coming out, and because it would affect people he cared about, if he was still around, he basically fakes his death and ends up in this old logging town where he's not interacting with anybody. And he lives in this isolated cabin completely alone, despite the fact that now he can actually relate to people for real. And so he sacrifices his entire future for his loved ones because but by doing so he ends up in, like I say, this isolated hell for him. And I was like, a lot of people said, well, he needs to be punished, he needs to end up like being killed at the end of it. And I'm like, no, this is so much worse than being killed, so much worse for him, because he suddenly finds a way to be happy and he's not allowed to have it. How much worse is that? But nobody else seemed to connect with it. So I guess I'm just the lone person out there who liked the ending of Dexter.
I sometimes wonder, because you said you came into Dexter a little bit later, I sometimes wonder about the effect of when you sit down and you watch something after it's been around for a while and you're not waiting week to week for some things. I often wait until an entire season comes out before I watch something, because I've found that a lot of times if you sit down and you watch it all at once, it's not nearly as bad a lot of the times than if you're sitting there waiting week to week and then you're like, what? I waited for 6 months for this shit?
I know what you mean. Although there are some shows you really should never, ever, ever binge watch because...
Oh, that is true too.
Yeah.
It's just, but, and I'm trying to think of an example because there was a long-term...
Yeah, I was
Honestly,
just going to say,
I think How I Met Your Mother is actually a good example of that for me, because I watched all of that as a binge after the fact, because I wasn't really interested in it at the time. And then I found it on Netflix and I was like, oh, I'll give it a try. And then I kind of fell in love with it. If I had sat and watched that shit for 7 years, I'd have been pissed at that ending.
Yeah.
But
Well,
since
I
sat
really
down
don't
and
watch
watched it in,
anything
like,
on normal TV. I pretty much always wait until it comes out on Netflix.
But I mean, if you sit down and watch 24, like the first season of 24 in one sitting, especially if you've seen it before, and you start to realize, like, the actors who are ultimately the bad guys in the end had no idea that's what they were. Like you can watching 24. I'm not sure they had written all of 24, or even an outline for the first season, because by the end of it, you're like, this is so silly. The people who end up being the bad guys were clearly not the bad guys, even for the writers when they were writing the early episodes. It's not possible.
Yeah. It's, and also I watched a little bit of 24 because it just happened to be on, and that was what my parents liked to watch. And I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, no, you were meant to watch that from week to week. That was specifically written because you had the anticipation and the build up and the what are they going to do next. And yeah, so.
Now, wait a minute. Just to see if I've got this in my head. Or 24, was that 24 episodes, each 1 an hour, and the whole thing was a day?
Exactly.
Okay. Because there was something coming to my... I wish I could remember who did it. There was a parody of it called 60. And it was either 60 seconds to the minute or something like that. It might have been something Letterman did. I'm not sure, but
I have no clue.
Yeah. I remember really liking 24 the first time I watched it through. And the second run through, though, it seems so silly.
I haven't seen it in years, so I honestly don't know if I would like it. I think I was a teenager when it came out.
I don't remember when it came out.
I don't remember either. And I know they tried to do a remake.
Wait a minute. I think I was still living in Cleveland at the time.
It says here 2001. It came out 19 years ago.
Damn.
Oh, so it came out later than I thought it came out. Okay.
Yeah. So I would have been a junior in high school. Yeah, junior in high school.
Yeah, I was like I was barely 23 years old, I guess. That doesn't make sense. 2001. No, that can't be right. Because, I'm not going to do the math. But I was born in 75 and 2001 would have...
So that's 25, 26 years, yeah.
Yeah. Man, can that even be right? How old was I in 2001? Well, I guess that's about right.
This feels
that's
like
just
one
weird.
of those moments that you were talking about the other night where some things feel like yesterday that really shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of this for me right now. I'm like, that was that long ago? Damn.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just weird. Like, high school feels like it was forever and a half ago. Elementary school feels like it was only forever ago and without the half. And yet just about everything after the year 2000 feels like it was an eye blink.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. Being displaced in time is a strange thing.
I've
Billy
always had some
Pilgrim
trouble
came
dealing with
unstuck in
linear
time.
Sorry, what was that?
Whose?
Go
Well,
ahead,
both of
Diana.
you were speaking at once, and I have no idea what you both said.
Oh, well, mine was the first sentence of Slaughterhouse-Five. Billy Pilgrim has come unstuck in time.
I saw that movie a long ass time ago. I didn't understand it because I was way too young, and I didn't much care for it.
Book is better. Really, it is. Goes into some detail that the movie never went into. And it's in Vonnegut's inimitable style, and I like Vonnegut. I really do. He's got this whole despair thing going.
You're not a huge fan of despair, me. I don't know. And it's funny. There are like 3 or 4 different like books, some of which have been made into movies, where they've all just blended together for me. Like Brave New World and Fahrenheit 451 and Slaughterhouse-Five and A Clockwork Orange might as well just be mashed together for me because I cannot tell one from the other.
It's an interesting combination.
One hell of a combo.
Yeah.
I can actually see most of that, but I don't see how you get Clockwork Orange in there.
Well, it's the same kind of weird. And it's a little bit on the dystopian side too.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the problem is that like they're not the same stories, but they have a very similar vibe for me, a very similar flavor. You know, kind of like Soylent Green could be mushed into that as well.
God, that was a crazy film.
Oh, and Logan's Run, for that matter. I don't know, because they all have that sort of what if some aspect of humanity was really freaking creepy. You know, because like the whole Logan's Run thing where it's like, how old are they? 25 when they die? 30?
30.
Something like that?
30.
Yeah, and it's just like, man, that's twisted. In fact, THX 1138 could also be thrown into that mix because it's the same kind of creepy.
I have not seen it.
Yeah,
it's not super worth
the
it.
same kind of weird, although I really like the ending of that one.
I don't even remember. It's weird because I own a copy of it, and yet I've only watched it once, and I don't remember exactly how it ends. But I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw Logan's Run as a first run, so it was interesting pulling that one all together and into my awareness, if you will. You know, this was pre VHS and all that stuff, so you didn't get to watch it over and over and over. And, I'm gonna have to pull that back out. It's been a while since I've watched that one. Yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, okay, when I was little, VCRs were just starting to be a thing, right? And so if you wanted to see a movie that had been out of theaters for a while, you totally could. But I have to wonder what it was like to live before VCRs, where if you didn't watch a movie when it was in the theaters, you'll never
didn't watch it.
see it. You know, like I
Well,
suppose maybe if they put it on television,
I was
and I
gonna
know that
say-
sometimes movies would be rerun in the theater, but still.
Yes, some of them did make it to television. And then my wife and I liked to go to, call them second run theaters. You know, they'd get the films in some years after they'd been first run. I mean, it's the way we saw Star Trek 4. It's the way we saw, I think we saw Return of the Body Snatchers that way as well. A few other interesting things. The second one.
I've never seen it. All I remember from the first one was Donald Sutherland. You know that.
Yeah, that's the end, and that's the remake. That was the 1976 remake, and then you had the 1950, whatever the hell it is. I saw that one years and years and years and years ago as well.
Don't you hate it when your memory watching something doesn't match watching it again later?
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, okay, for example, I don't know if you're familiar with Chalky. It was a book by John Wyndham, the same guy who did like the Midwich Cuckoos and all of that. And it's basically about this kid who starts hearing this voice that's clearly not his own head. It's clearly some other entity. And no one knows what the hell's going on. And basically this alien from another dimension just sort of started palling around with him. And they did this 3-parter like BBC production that ended up getting put on Nickelodeon. And so I saw this when I was like, 10, 11 years old, and it creeped me the hell out. Trying to watch it now, it is so bad. I mean, it is so terrible.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, and that's one of the big things, especially things you saw as a child or even a teenager, seeing them from a more mature viewpoint, they often don't hold up as well.
Well, that's happened to me a couple of times with books. I think we were talking about this last show, weren't we, Kate? I read Catcher in the Rye at the age of maybe 11 or so, and then I reread it years later. So why the hell did I even pick this up? And then another one was When Worlds Collide.
Oh, great! Now that song's in my head.
Yeah, because when I tried to reread it, oh God, it was so stilted, and it was like, God, how did I even do this?
Well, I still like pointing out how at the end of the movie, everyone who's on the rocket to escape Earth is white as a frickin' sheet. There is not one person who isn't white in that rocket. And I'm just like, wow. I mean, I know how long ago that movie was made, so I understand why they did it, but it is just so frickin' racist now.
Yes. Yeah, I'm trying to remember when the hell was that?
And there are so many times I wish I could go back in time with movies, television, and music from now and like set up a pirate radio station or a TV station or something, in the 50s and start showing people stuff. I mean, because there are some shows out there now where they show the next best thing to actual nudity. We're talking network shows. And I'm like, okay, this is really amazing sci-fi with awesome special effects. And I wonder if that would be enough for people to watch it anyway, even though they have 1950s sensibilities where any kind of nudity, I mean, hell, they didn't show a in the movies until like Psycho or something. And I'm just like, started showing, for example, the Orville, where in the very first episode, you see a guy's wife cheating on him with an alien who splooges like blue cum out of his forehead. And that's the first 5 minutes of the show. And I'm like, could you get away with that in the 50s if the show itself was well produced enough?
I think you would get stuff that would have basically a cult following. No one would be able to admit it publicly that they would watch it.
I guess. I don't know. It's just love to do an experiment I'd love to run to force 50s people to watch movies and listen to music. Love to.
I have to wonder how many camera shots there would be, of panning up. That was a favorite when you had the hot and heavy love scene going, and you run the camera up. Yeah.
Yeah, they made a joke about that in the Truman Show. That since they were like supposed to be watching his life 24 hours a day, like when he had sex, they would just pan off to show the curtains moving.
Yeah.
Or the fireplace. I wonder, like, there are bits of the Truman Show that like they had to hire an actress to play his wife, which means they had to hire someone to fuck him.
Yeah, I've thought about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kate, you seem to be buffering kind of badly at the moment.
Wait,
yeah,
me?
I'm noticing it as well.
There.
Oh, nothing I can do about it.
So far, it's doing well now.
The audio came through okay, but just you stopped moving several times.
And also, like, imagine if Truman leaves at the end of it, and imagine he's walking around in the world, and people are like, I remember when you were a teenager on that show, and every now and then when you were alone, you'd jack off. Everyone knows, like every time he snuck off where no one was watching and started picking his nose, everyone knows every detail in his life like that. I mean, that's gotta suck to get into the world and realize that no moment you ever had was private.
Think of real life child stars. How many of their lives have been ruined because too many people knew every detail of them growing up.
Mm-hmm. And some of the weird lengths like mega stars go to now so they can actually walk around and do stuff without being mobbed.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Justin Bieber actually puts on sunglasses and a big coat and sits in a wheelchair so that he doesn't get mobbed.
I don't believe anything he ever does is not a publicity stunt. So with him, I don't really buy it.
Bieber,
but
give me a second here.
But there is someone out there, some star who, no joke, uses a wheelchair to not be recognized.
No, I know with some stars, they do have to really go to extremes just to be able to go out and do normal things. And that's why I wouldn't really want to be like a TV or a movie star. I would like to be, I like the idea of being a writer. I would like my work to be well known, but that most people don't really know what I look like.
Well, if I ever get a vehicle, and I totally should at some point soon, I don't live too terribly far from LA. And one thing I would love to do, is to be a professional extra. Like, say to an agent, I don't want to be a star. I don't want to be in every damn movie, but I want to be in the background scene of every sitcom. The main characters are in a coffee shop or a restaurant. I want to be at that table by the window every time. I want to be that person walking away from the camera, back to the camera, down the halls of the Starship Enterprise wearing a Starfleet uniform.
Yeah, like Stanley did in all the Marvel movies.
Yeah, well, but he usually has a bit part.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't even necessarily want a bit part. I want to be that person just mouthing gibberish because I can't actually be heard in the coffee shop. That
would actually turn into a hilarious game. You could be like, drink every time you find Kate in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Allegedly, there's some guy who's already done that. Like, that's already his thing, but I'd love to do it too. I mean, I don't even know if that's true. I just heard it somewhere. And darn it, I came up with the idea before I heard about that guy. Someone about that guy after I told them the idea. So I'm still taking ownership of it.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Well, I have actually heard it mentioned, about a couple of people. I don't remember any of the names, but there's a kind of certain internet fad thing going about these people who have played bit characters in movies without ever being noticed, and it's like, trying to find them and trying to trying to find how many things they've been in without going on IMDb to look it up.
It's kind of like recognizing the Wilhelm scream when you hear it.
Yeah.
Or playing the Kevin Bacon game, but with extras. Man, before my memory started to go thanks to the seizures, I was so damn good at the Kevin Bacon game. Benefits of having worked in 4 video stores.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How can you tell if your memory's gone or if you really could never remember that stuff in the first place?
Well, because I know I could remember it at one time, and now it's gone.
Yeah.
But I mean, my dad has told me stories about things that I've been involved in that I don't remember at all.
Okay,
and
then.
I don't know if anyone's seen Malcolm in the Middle, but the guy who played Malcolm, and I can't really pronounce his last name very well. It's like Frankie Muniz. I don't know.
But I think you had it right the first time.
He had some sort of weird traumatic event, and he cannot remember being on that show.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a thing. So yeah, there are things my dad has told me about where I'm like, when the hell did that happen? And he goes, like 3 years ago. I don't know. There's times I think my life would make so much more sense if it turned out that I was on my own personal Truman Show, or if I'm in a lab somewhere being tested like Stranger Things style. So many things in my life would make so much more sense if that were true.
Okay, then.
Yeah, well, and I can kind of get why
some of
the conspiracy theorists that we see, posting videos, why they find that kind of thing so easy to believe.
Well, because the truth is so much more fucked up, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what's that Sloth
Girl saying about the Mandela effect?
Oh, yeah, okay.
And it's like, yeah, isn't it a lot easier to believe that a legend got started and took hold rather than that this is, some like merging of different realities?
Well, I mean, goodness knows that I think I've often described Christianity, for example, as people took a book way too seriously, and now its fans are worse than Trekkies. I mean, that's a way I describe religion quite frequently. And it wouldn't shock me to discover that's true, because the alternative where, magic exists and it's really screwy, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, I mean, you don't even have to go far to see that one. We've got Scientology.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows that was made up by a science fiction author just a couple of decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, has anyone seen the Leah Remini documentary series about Scientology?
I saw like one episode of it.
Oh my gosh, that religion is so screwed up. Just hearing about some of the abuse they heap on people, the level of surveillance they enact against former members who've left. It's just insane. It's like someone took religion and the mob and mashed them together.
All right, that makes sense. Actually, no, that description makes sense.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
It's so fucked up. And then you hear these stories about the guy who took charge after L. Ron Hubbard died, and like some of the violence that he's done.
Yes.
Members that are like, high up in his organization. I mean, he has literally grabbed people and thrown them on tables and started beating them. And it's just insane.
That's the problem. I hear so much insane stuff about it. I don't know what to actually believe.
Well, I mean, I seem to remember someone got at least an audio recording of some of the shit that guy's done. And that's enough for me to believe the rest of it.
Yeah, no, I did hear in a YouTube video somebody was playing that about just the way he was shouting down at some underling.
That's his name, David Miscavige. I'm not sure what the part, but Miscavige I know is his last name. I think it's David.
Yeah, my understanding about him is that the weirder the stories are, the more likely they are to be true.
I mean, even apart from Scientology, though, you just look at Mormonism and the way that one got started. I mean, that sounds like a primitive sci-fi novel unto itself.
Yeah. Well, it was, it was, just some good fiction for the time period it was written.
Well, and it was also like a cash cow.
Yeah. But I think it caught on so well because it was an affirmation that the white people had a right to this continent.
I'm trying to remember who it was. I want to say Mr. Atheist was doing it, maybe, because he's the one who's the ex-Mormon, right? Where he does these responses to these other people who do their own videos where it's like a couple of teenagers or 20-somethings sitting around a table, and the one black dude keeps trying to justify the passages about black people in Mormonism. And I'm just like, really, dude? I mean, we're getting into Uncle Tom territory here.
Oh, so what is he, the G-man of Mormonism? Basically, the apologist or whatever? No.
Well, I mean, in terms of being an apologist, yes, but in terms of attitude, demeanor, et cetera, he's the exact opposite of G-man.
Okay,
I don't know. I've seen some stuff recently by him that's just been.
Who, Gary?
No, Kwaku. She's talking about Kwaku from the three what was previously called the Three Mormons, and he's been getting kind of really icky.
Oh. Well, regardless, no, he's nothing like G-Man in terms of like watching him is a much more
pleasant.
Calm. No, I'm gonna say calm. Calm is more like it. He's more measured. He doesn't sound like he's either grouchy or trying to pwn you all the time. He's less confrontational, and he seems to have an IQ that's better than room temperature.
Okay, it just amazes me though the way the positions that G-Man will defend. Would you be comfortable with being the slave under God's? Oh, of course, yeah. What? Jesus, man, Gary, come on.
Well, let's face it, a lot of Christians have what I can only describe as Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. I'm with you.
Yeah.
It just occurred to me that insult of their IQ being room temperature is a much bigger insult in Europe than it is in the US.
Yes. I've often made the Celsius distinction, believe me.
Sorry, sidetracked there, but
no.
I like it.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I kind of had run out of things to say on that topic, so it was good you interjected.
And a reminder for anyone who didn't see the stuff on Twitter, anyone who contributed or ran a stream for us, We've got the catalog of thank you gifts there for everybody to pick something out. So just DM me on Twitter on, what items you'd like, and I need an address to mail it to.
I was looking at the movie that you posted, the what is it, the YouTube little thing that you did, yeah. And that's got $5 for the lawn parts. Oh, jeez.
See, that's the thing is those were the ones I wanted to claim. And
somebody got them, right?
Well, no. I haven't. I mean, Purple said I'll probably get them. I mean, because
I'm going by levels. Whoever contributed the most gets the first choice.
Right. So, and I said, if someone above me gets them, fine. And but that was really the only thing I wanted. And I did donate 200 smackers. So I'm probably up there in the top, I don't know how many.
I think there's only 3 people who donated more than that who didn't do it anonymously.
So, I mean, those are the ones I wanted to claim just because I remember them from childhood. And obviously, I'm not going to be using them in San Diego, but I'd love to put them up on my wall or something.
Oh, you're not going to go play them in the park? With all the kids and dogs running through?
I suspect I'd be arrested.
Yeah, they'd at least have them confiscated, right? As contraband.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Well, they're not actually sharp, but the ends of them have a good amount of weight of steel to them.
I don't want to be hit in the head with one, or anywhere else for that matter.
Wait, okay, so these are not sharp?
Well, I mean, they have the point, but I mean, the points were never... Well, they didn't come from the factory sharpened. I won't say that they were never sharpened because we modified ours, but...
Well, I mean, they are meant to... Well, they are meant to stick in the ground from really high up, and sort of blunt would work anyway.
Yeah, the end of it is like the size of the end of a pen. The diameter of a pen. Because they're just made so that the weight is enough that when they go into the grass, they'll sink in and stand upright.
Yeah, I mean, when they come down from 10, 20, 30 feet up, they'll stick into soft earth.
Yeah.
And soft people.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
And you're all soft and weak.
Well, yeah, really, I don't think the point would so much penetrate the skin, as much as it would, getting hit by a blunt object would break your skin open.
It would definitely hurt. It'll leave a nice lump and bruise, that's for sure.
I did get a good bruise from one as a kid when we were playing them, and that was because, not that I was in the wrong place, but somebody lost their grip on the backswing.
Oh boy, okay.
So I was standing behind the person, and before they had actually thrown it, just swinging back, it flew up and hit me in the head. So yeah,
that
it left a nice lump.
Okay. He can kill me now.
No,
wait a minute.
I've often said
what? The dent or the mental dent? I'll be over here.
Yeah.
No, I largely survived childhood by being good at hiding. Because I just had to be a little better at hiding than my next brother up, so he got to be the test pilot on all the carnival rides.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my 2 oldest brothers bounced him on the head a little too many times. I don't think he's quite right these days.
So you didn't literally mean carnival rides?
Oh, yeah. They tried to engineer things.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I mean, like, you weren't taken to a state fair.
Oh,
and,
no.
Like, you're the one who's going to go on the big spinny thing that makes everyone throw up.
No, but they tried to build things to that effect in the backyard.
Okay.
That was a common pastime. Yeah, I know of people who would do that stuff. I never got to, but I wanted to.
Well, there was this dude in my neighborhood. His name was Huey. I forget his last name. But he built
Lewis.
this wooden ramp that must have been 4 or 5 feet high, so he could do jumps off it with his bike. And like he dragged it down to the park that was right by where I lived, and man, some of the crazy stuff he would do on this thing, it was insane. But I never really because he would use it the way people on skateboards would do, like those jumps and flip around and come back down onto the ramp the other way, and he would do that with his bike. And I was just like, okay, and there were a lot of kids who were dared to do jumps on this thing. I declined, but there were a lot of others.
There were quite a few times we built wooden ramps like that too, jump with our skateboards and with our bikes, and everybody always had the big dreams of doing the flips and everything, but I never saw anybody try anything like that.
I'm surprised.
Also, just hurt. Most of the time going on the ramp, well, a lot of people got hurt, but most of the time going up these ramps, you just didn't get airborne that long.
I mean, the ramp I knew.
Oh, the guy you saw,
yeah. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. A lot of kids used it, but no one managed to hurt themselves.
We had a rather high hill at a park near the house in which I grew up that was famous for sledding. So you'd get the snow-covered hill, and the kids would go down this, and they'd be doing 45 miles an hour by the time they got to the bottom of this damn hill. Enough people got hurt that the city put posts halfway down. Oh. So if you tried to take your, sled or your toboggan down, you would not get all the way down. You had to start halfway down already. And then eventually just close the whole damn thing. But that thing, I never went down, but I heard stories about some of the kids who went down there. Was thrilling, yes, but if something went slightly wrong, God, were you screwed.
Well, I was raised in Vermont. We had a lot of snow and a lot of sledding. And the thing was, I lived in this little isolated neighborhood that was off from the main whatever. So if we ever had a snow day where we couldn't go to school, the snow plows wouldn't show up until late afternoon or something. So nobody was leaving the neighborhood. And as a result, we had access to some of the hills that were roads rather than, just a hill out in the middle of nowhere. So we would take our sleds up to the top of the hill and go down the road. And if we managed to lean right, we'd end up in the park where we'd go onto the basketball court and then onto the jump that someone had made. So we wouldn't be going that fast the way you described it. But by the time we got to that jump, but we'd be going fast enough that we'd get some air.
Okay. Yeah, this hill in question, I may be exaggerating slightly, but not by much.
No.
It was, I remember it as being at least 150 feet.
Yeah, no, growing up, like I said, I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. And in the forest preserve, there was a hill there that, they actually clocked people on sleds doing over a mile a minute. They were actually getting up to speeds over 60 miles an hour.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah. Of course, some of the crazier things we do here. I remember once I was really young, and I know I've told this story on Diana's shows. We actually took the car out onto Lake Champlain.
Okay.
Right. And so, because it's all slick and slippery and stuff. And apparently if it freezes enough, you're in no danger of going through. So right. And I was really young. I might have been 10 and my dad was driving, and you could do these things where you get up a lot of speed and then jam on the brakes and move the wheels. You do these donuts where you're not just in place doing a circle, you're doing circle across the ice.
Yeah.
And it was actually a lot of fun, but looking back on it now, I'm shocked we didn't get killed.
Okay. I remember hearing stories. I mean, this was pre-me, but the Lake Erie Islands in the west end of Lake Erie, during the winters, it would freeze hard enough where the doctor that served the various islands would drive from island to island. The priest that served the various churches would drive from island to island. And remember now, this was at a time when the cars were quite heavy. They were not simply a frame. They actually had a chassis and everything. And
land barges with fins on them?
Pretty much. And they would be supported on the damned ice. And by the time I was a kid, you couldn't do that anymore because the lake was so polluted. But remember now that I grew up in the only city in the United States that had a river that ignited twice.
Yeah. Well, as far as driving vehicles on the ice, I still see it up here every winter. People driving pickup trucks across the ice.
Okay.
And yeah, it's not unusual to hear about somebody dropping one through because they tried it a little too soon.
Okay, then.
But that's how they get the ice fishing houses out there. I mean, the smart ones will use a snowmobile, but a lot of idiots will do it with an SUV.
I've seen charts of how much ice has to freeze before it's safe to do X, Y, or Z on it. The thing is, I suspect it might have been a joke, the one I saw, because it was like, here's how much it has to freeze to walk on it. Here's how much it has to freeze to drive on it. Here's but the last one was Godzilla. And I was like, well, even if it is accurate to all the other stuff, Godzilla.
Yeah, but to support a car, it has to be like 18 inches of solid ice.
Yeah.
You can walk on it when it's like 3 or 4 inches will support the weight of a person walking.
Well, part of what helped is that Lake Champlain isn't just a lake. It has a bunch of bays, and the bays tend to be a lot more shallow than the rest of the lake. So,
But it's also got a sea monster who's eroding it from underneath.
True. Yeah, I wish I'd ever actually seen Champ. I'm sure he doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's one thing that some people get wrong. I've noticed, like Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster, is definitely a she, but the main legend of Champ is that he's a he. But there was a Choose Your Own Adventure book that was based on Champ, and they decided Champ was a chick, and like anyone from Vermont was going, "Nuh-uh, that's not our legend." So, it was a thing.
Yeah, people get wound up over strange things. Obviously, for anything like that to exist, you have to have a breeding population.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we assume that any of these sea monsters are immortal or something, I figure they don't have to breed. But, I mean, they're already magical. Why not make them immortal? Okay. It's kind of like how many Bigfootses have to be out there for the legends of Bigfoot sightings to have any coherent, like internal logic to them? Because, Bigfoot probably would have been dead a long ass time ago if there weren't more than one.
Well, I don't know. There are 3 of us in this conversation that personally know Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he lives in Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
You've heard the story, I know.
I haven't actually.
No, really?
Really?
My word! Oh my word! He tells that story so well.
Okay.
He who?
I'm assuming Aaron Ra.
Oh, okay. Sure.
I think of him as a Klingon, but go on. Or Genghis Khan.
Okay. He's talking about hitchhiking in Arizona, and it's getting dark, and coyotes are circling him, and the whole bit like this, and he's trying to scare them off, doing the whole roar thing, and a car comes by, he's trying to get the attention, roar, and then the next morning or a couple days later or something, he's in the gas station, Yeah, you better be careful. We've heard a lot of sightings of Bigfoot. He's sitting there, Jesus, they're talking about me.
Well, I mean, no part of me ever thought that Bigfoot was in, what did you say, Arizona? That's a little south for Bigfoot.
Yeah. Well, there actually are different versions in different states. I know even in Florida, there's a legend of a swamp man.
Wow.
Yeah, that's basically, if you believe these things are real, could be interpreted as being a subspecies of the same thing.
Where do the chupacabra stories come from?
Mostly Central America.
Oh, okay. A little further south than Phoenix. Okay.
So what is the proper plural? Is it Bigfoots or Big Feet?
Oh my God, that sounds like the one scene out of The Hobbit. Where the one Hobbit by the name of Proudfoot had a little bit of an argument with one of his relatives or something about the plural of family members. The other guy, I think, was calling them Proud Feet, and he's insisting it's Proudfoots.
Well, it's a family name. I think would have to be Proudfoots.
I agree. And so it would have to be Bigfoots and not Big Feet.
Okay. We can do this.
I mean, by the same logic.
Yeah, that would make more sense, actually.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, not one scrap of this matters in any way. It's just fun to talk about.
Right.
I like going on about grammar. You know me.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's kind of like every time someone says, oh, yeah, that criminal was hung. No, he was hung.
Well, hey, maybe the criminal was hung.
Could be both.
Well, if you saw that stream I did with S.J. Thomason and G-Man, I corrected G-Man in that one.
Yes, I remember you doing that. Yes.
That felt good to do.
It's just so unfortunate that, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Things that seem so obvious to me are unknown to a large sector of the population. For example, the difference between hung and hanged, or formation of plurals, ending in adjectives, like brothers-in-law, that sort of thing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, here's the one that drives me absolutely bonko is the difference between proved and proven.
Okay.
Because everyone these days seems to say proven for everything, and that is so incorrect. If you did a science experiment and discovered what is so, you proved a theory. But if you have a friend who's been loyal, they are a proven friend.
Yeah.
You see, so but everyone says, oh yeah, that scientific theory is proven. No, it isn't. I mean, unless you're saying how reliable it is a proved theory, not a proven one.
And the one that really gets to me, and I don't watch television news, which is where I would hear happening most of the time. He pleaded guilty.
No,
yes.
He pled guilty.
Yes.
Oh.
I did, however, I forget if it was an article that I read or a video that I saw, that this is an example of the loss of what's the word? Irregular verbs. Where they're all the strong verbs are becoming weak. Where you have the ed ending more and more, which is really unfortunate because they. I love the various forms of the strong verbs.
Well, I mean, even if I don't object to some of these irregular verbs, I have to wonder why. Like, why isn't it righted instead of written? someone made that decision at some point, and I want to know why. How do they justify? Because there's no reason for it not to be righted.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only reason I can think of is if they wanted to make a distinction between, like, this document was written, but that truck that got turned over was righted. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, of course, you have even different spellings of right in that case. You know, you definitely the different senses.
But I mean, if people want to be able to distinguish verbally, because they're not seeing it in text, I figure that they decided on written to distinguish it from righted.
You want to take on the one Heat Shield just typed in the side chat?
I saw that.
Okay, I got to look at this because there's the other one with the word that is its own antonym. There might be a couple of those. Cleave, which to separate or to cling. I mean, raise and raise. It's not one word being its own antonym because the spellings are different.
Yeah. Okay, here's one that is, I think it's much more recent than it used to. Like, people, the one that drives me up the wall is literally.
Oh my!
You know, where they just use it for emphasis. So they say it was, like, my head literally exploded. No, I don't think it did.
I don't, unless there are brains all over the wall, could be.
Actually, that's the one people bring up a lot. And if you go back far enough, the meaning has flipped.
Now, when people say literally, they mean figuratively.
Yeah, they use literally to be hyperbolic, and it's but in doing so, they've reversed the definition. It's crazy pants.
But
really
even like 200 years ago, it was being used the way it's being used now.
And I could almost see that if they meant like literature, like fiction, then literally I can see why that would, but
And then there's the other one in Shakespeare's English. Let meant prevent.
Really?
There's a line in Hamlet that makes sense only if you understand that. Something or other, to him who lets me, which means, to him who would prevent me.
And I find Shakespeare dull. And I'm glad now that I haven't tried to read it, because some of those historical weirdnesses would have really gotten to me.
Okay. Oh, here we are. Yeah, here we are. It's, by heaven, I'll make a ghost of him that lets me. And in other words, you prevent me, I'll kill you. Yeah. Now, I did not mind. I've seen several Shakespearean plays. I didn't mind reading through them and studying them before seeing them. But then again, I'm weird. You know that.
Well, I kind of like a lot of modern retellings of Shakespeare. Like, for example, the movie 10 Things I Hate About You is a high school version of The Taming of the Shrew. Right? Okay. And I'm pretty okay with that because people speak like normal people.
I'm trying to remember, though, the one that is set in the modern day, and a lot of car chases going on when the movie opens, but the dialogue is early modern English. They're actually reading the play, while the whole thing is it's a retelling of Romeo and Juliet.
Well, there was one called Romeo and Juliet. I think it had Lenny DiCaprio in it. I might be wrong.
This might be the one I'm thinking of.
Do you remember what the cover of the video cassette or the poster looked like? Because I remember it being blue with, like, I want to say a red cross in the middle that was not like religious cross. It looked more like the Red Cross, more like a plus sign.
Yeah, like a first aid symbol.
Yeah. I mean, it might have actually meant to be the Romeo plus Juliet, but I mean, I can totally picture the cover of this thing, but I don't remember if it was Lenny DiCaprio.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. Let me see here.
Let me see here. 1996 might be the one I'm thinking of. And yeah, that's Lenny DiCaprio and Claire Danes.
96 would be about the right time.
Yeah, it's probably, yeah. So anyway, I never saw it. No interest.
Okay.
Especially since, I mean, as I understand it, Romeo and Juliet is a pretty sick story when you stop to think about it.
Yeah, well.
I mean, aren't they like 13 or something? Or like she's 13 and he's 19 or some shit?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And of course, everyone dies at the end. I mean, that's not a great story. I mean, people talk about it as being the greatest romance ever, but it's more like a bunch of really sick teenage angst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and besides, it's not even original. It's a retelling of a retelling of a retelling. I mean,
well, what is
Shakespeare himself retold something.
I mean, so many stories these days, you could look at it and go, well, they stole that from that and that from that. And it's clearly a retelling of this, that, and the other thing. I mean, like even just going by the hero's journey model of storytelling, a lot of things just look like a lot of other things.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's that wonderful, what year was that? The retelling of The Tempest with Hal Holbrook and was it Anne Francis? You know, The Forbidden Planet.
Oh, that. I'm trying to remember. Wasn't that Leslie Nielsen?
Yeah, I think he was in there. Yes.
Well, I think he was the main character.
I got to finding the thing.
He was the member, like the commanding officer of the expedition that went to this planet.
Yeah, I mean, Holbrook was like the cook or some shit.
Okay.
So he wasn't. Yeah, Commander John J. Adams, Leslie Nielsen. Yes.
See,
you know, I had never connected that was Leslie Nielsen.
Well, he doesn't look like the dude from The Naked Gun in this. He's much younger. So,
yeah.
I mean, because my first experience, my first knowing experience with Leslie Nielsen was The Naked Gun. But then later I went back and rewatched Airplane and went, oh, hey, it's that guy. So I had actually come to experience him earlier than The Naked Gun.
Yeah, well, I connected The Naked Gun and Airplane, but I guess I just, because it was a more serious role, that it never clicked in my mind that was him.
Well, the funny thing is, I heard somewhere that he had no sense of humor whatsoever and had no idea why The Naked Gun was funny.
Oh. Okay.
I mean, I heard that somewhere. I don't know how true it is.
No, actually, I'm remembering a bit when he was on a talk show. I'm thinking it's probably Johnny Carson, but on some talk show that he was saying the difference between a comic and a comedian is that a comic says funny things and a comedian says things in a funny way. And his success was doing unfunny things in an unfunny way.
I guess. I think he was doing funny things in an unfunny way that made them funny.
Yeah, but it goes along with what you were saying, that he didn't see it as being funny.
Which is kind of weird.
He was just kind of playing off the actors around him.
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of the things he would say were pretty funny. I mean, it's hard to not look at, of course I'm serious, and don't call me Shirley, as anything other than hilarious, you know? I mean, well, in any case, we're probably just saying the same thing using different words. That happens a lot. But Yeah, no, I really don't know the story of The Tempest, and there are a number of sci-fi movies out there, and I can only name two off the top of my head where they tried to do some sort of weird biblical narrative as part of it, and it just doesn't work. Like,
Okay.
have you ever seen The Black Hole?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't remember as much of that as I want to. I have seen it, but I wasn't paying attention really.
No, honestly, you
Terrible
probably
movie.
remember more of it than you want to.
But
Okay.
it turns into this weird biblical narrative by the end of it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that was not entertaining in any way. And the funny part is that Disney made The Black Hole specifically because they were trying to cash in on Star Wars mania. And they made one of the least Star Warsy sci-fi flicks that's set in space that they could possibly make.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's kind of Disney's thing. Try to cash in on whatever popular trend and do a bad job of it, but because Disney's on it, they still make a fortune.
True. I don't know. I'm sure. Well, the sad part is that some of my favorite Disney movies are ones that bombed pretty hard. Like Atlantis the Lost Empire. I am hard pressed to find someone who's even seen it most of the time. And I'm sure someone here is going to say, oh, I've seen it. But yeah, you're like the 1% of people I know.
No, I agree with you. I have not found anyone else who said they liked it. And I thought it was great.
I can't understand what was to not like. I mean, but that's just me.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that Disney has started making movies that aren't musicals. Ugh, don't get me started on musicals.
I'm not exactly a fan of musicals.
Claude Pearl is a huge fan of classic musicals.
See, I would like musicals if there were two things different than most musicals. Number one, change up the style of music. You know, like a rock opera style musical instead of the more like Disney style musical, like not Mary Poppins or the Wizard of Oz kind of musical. You know, where the genre of music was something I enjoy. But also the other factor is if the songs move the plot forward. Because most musicals, they choose one thing, an emotion a character is feeling, and go on for 5 minutes with a song about it. And I'm like, if the plot moved forward where I'm not just waiting for the song to be over, that would be pretty handy.
Well, that is particularly true of, the Disney type ones or the ones that they are trying to aim at kids.
Well, and that's another problem is a lot of Hollywood thinks that there are only certain things kids are like either willing to watch or should watch or whatever. And that's musicals and comedies. You know, I mean, there are so few animated movies aimed at kids that are adventures without ever trying to be funny or little asides that are funny as opposed to something that's always constant elbow in the ribs. Isn't that hilarious, kids?
Yeah.
You know, and without the damn musicals. Like I can name one off the top of my head that isn't Japanese, and that would be Star Chaser, The Legend of Orin.
Come on, Fifth.
Of course, Star Chaser is just a total ripoff of Star Wars, but that might be the basis of its appeal.
Haven't seen that one, so I don't know.
Oh, there's a young kid who finds a sword that, like the blade disappears, and now whenever it reappears and he tries to use it, it's glowing. And he gets magical powers. There's the daughter of like a duke, I want to say, or a count, I forget. But she's clearly a Princess Leia clone. And then you've got Dag Debrimi, the smuggler. Who he takes, this line is totally ripped from Star Wars. He takes them to Toga Togo, the thickest den of thieves this side of Bordegon, which is clearly nothing like Mos Eisley. You'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. Nothing like it. You know, you've got it's such a ripoff of Star Wars, but they do it brilliantly, and I love it.
Okay, Heat Shield's asking what you think of Fiddler on the Roof.
Never seen it.
Oh my.
Makes a good point on that one. The songs in that one actually do advance the plot.
Yeah, you got a point
Well,
there.
the only bit I know, like the only thing I know about Fiddler on the Roof is that little tiny, if I were a rich man, that's everything I know.
Yeah.
You know, that's everything I know. I don't even know what it's about, although I assume roofs have something to do with it. Roofs.
Not really. Not
No,
really.
no, the Fiddler on the Roof, he explains, it's just a metaphor.
I hate that. I mean, seriously, I hate it when titles have nothing to do with the actual story. You know,
Yeah, it's basically dealing with change.
Yeah, in a strange way, the title does, it fits the story because he is explaining that it is a metaphor for the way they live.
I guess.
And because of the character, it does really tie into the story in that way.
Okay, well,
but
I mean,
mostly it's about not so much that life changes, but that change is being forced upon them.
Yeah.
That they've had their traditions, they've done everything the same way in this village for generations, and the march of time is just forcing things upon them.
But how is a fiddler on the roof? Now, number one, is it literally like I've got a fiddle, or is it some guy fiddling with something?
No, well, this is the way it opens. You have the fiddler on the roof. On the roof.
I just wanted a yes or no on this one.
Yeah, and then
and he is literally on a roof. Okay,
literally on the roof, and then it opens.
What does that signify in terms of change?
There's the opening song. Tevye is going on. How does he stay up there? His tradition, and you go tradition. This whole thing like this.
Okay.
And you open with the whole tradition thing, and then bit by bit, the change is forced.
What's the tradition?
Everything.
Okay, see, you're not answering my questions here because I'm still confused. Okay, there's a guy on a roof and he's got a fiddle, and that signifies change how?
That's the starting point, and the change occurs to those traditions.
So by the end of it, he has to leave the roof. Is that it?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. See, that's the thing is like you seem to be answering my questions sideways. And
yeah,
I was looking for something a little more direct.
Yeah, it is hard, to be quite direct about that part of it. But yeah, as the movie progresses, it does. The songs within it, do have a lot to do with, as much to do as two characters having a dialogue.
Well, I will say that there is one way that I enjoy a classic musical style musical number, and that's if it's completely unexpected and really over the top. I'm thinking Every Sperm is Sacred here. 95 Times Meaning of Life, because nobody expected that to turn into a musical, and by the time it's done, you've got this whole town singing. And like they do the same thing in a couple episodes of How I Met Your Mother. And then the Buffy musical episode was okay, but it wasn't just a one-off song. So that was not quite fitting the bill, but some of the songs were deeply amusing anyway. So yeah. Like there's Anya's bit when it turns into a rock opera and she's going off on how much she thinks bunnies are evil.
Yeah.
Well,
bunnies aren't just cute like everybody supposes. Yeah, anyway, I won't do the whole thing, but it's just this one moment in this song that was a fairly traditional musical that all of a sudden turns into a rock opera about evil bunnies. I don't know.
But I would agree with what you're saying that, why can't they do them, in a wider variety of musical styles?
Mm-hmm.
Why does it always have to fit a certain formula there?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because the same two guys set the formula, and you just had to do the tradition.
Yeah, well, but they did a couple of rock operas in the 60s that were really pretty successful for their time.
Well, yeah, there was Tommy, there was Jesus Christ Superstar.
I've never seen either of those. All I know
I
about
can't
Tommy is
say that
blind
you've
pinball
missed.
dude. All I know
Say
about
again.
Tommy is blind pinball dude, and I guess the
Yeah.
Who. Was it that the Who?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that deaf, dumb, and blind kid sure plays a mean pinball.
I don't know anything about Jesus Christ Superstar except that Jesus Christ is probably in it somewhere.
I think he shows up here or there or something.
Yeah, it basically was about a group of hippies waiting for him
Yeah.
to come back.
And I suppose if you wanted to split the difference between traditional musical and rock opera, we got ourselves Rocky Horror. You know, I mean, at least in terms of musical style.
Okay.
You know, it's not something that a lot of people have seen, but I actually like Sweeney Todd.
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
I still kind of can't mesh slasher film or slasher thriller with musical. That just kind of doesn't click sometimes.
I need to see that one, and maybe we're even talking about the same thing. I don't remember, but what was the one that was done by the South Park guys?
Oh, yeah. Oh God, what the hell was it called?
Because I swear that was about a serial killer of some sort, and it might have been Sweeney Todd. I don't remember.
Oh man, I have to cheat and look it up.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one you mean there.
Oh no, it's Cannibal the Musical. I'm thinking of Cannibal the Musical.
Oh, okay.
Okay, then.
Yeah, I was about to look at. Has that ever happened to you? You're like, I can't remember. I'm about to look it up. You start typing in the URL, and then it comes to you.
Yep.
And, oh, it is after midnight, and I'm
Yep.
not tired, but I'm very hungry.
Well, I actually was going to say I should probably wrap this up soon because, yeah, the situation we've got here right now, where Sloth Girl and I are kind of sharing an apartment, so I'm kind of keeping her up.
Mm.
She complains that I get too loud when I'm in the chats.
Oh,
I know nothing about that.
I don't know. Are you to the point where you can move around in there yet, or how's it working?
Well, that's, for me, getting to the point that I can just move is enough. I seriously physically overtaxed to the point that just getting out, walking around has been painful.
well,
So
it's only
kind of focusing on just getting her apartment functional, and mine right now is just kind of, my stuff is down there in storage, and I'm not too worried about living there right now.
maybe it's hard to tell because they're just barely on screen, but I think I'm seeing a bunch of boxes.
Yeah. Yep. There's
Yeah,
still
over your
a
right
big stack of
shoulder.
boxes behind me there. Yeah, because we haven't got her her entertainment center or her bookshelves assembled yet, so she doesn't have a place to put that stuff yet.
It's fine.
That's going to be, you're going to want to take a good rest before you start that stuff. Yeah.
It's funny. We were talking
That
about
will be relatively lighter work compared to just the lifting and hauling everything.
So we were talking about like words and like how they're conjugated and all that earlier, and I'm not saying this should be this way, but I would be perfectly happy if the plural of box was boxin'.
Okay,
why not?
It makes a perverse kind of sense.
Yes, it does. And
Well, I mean, you have oxen, and you have very little else that uses that.
I can't think of any others off the top of my head.
Yeah, I couldn't think of one offhand either, but I figured if I said there weren't any, somebody would jump in and correct me on that.
This is one of the reasons I love German, where you have constructions like that. Where an en, for example, is a plural ending for nouns of, I think it's masculine nouns. German has grammatical gender.
So what's the ending for feminine nouns?
In.
Oh, okay. Because I'm thinking that therefore it should be boxin.
Okay.
Because box.
And then yeah, and then there are some things where you're going with Freund is friend G, and then you have the a female friend is Freundin, and then you can have many female friends, Freundinnen. It's a whole thing. You're stringing these things all together. Oh my! Am I?
Okay, well then,
I'm boring her is what I'm doing.
It's midnight 15 here, so I'm tired.
Yeah, I have 03:15 over here, and then Purple, you're splitting the difference between us now.
Yeah, we've got people in every time zone on the U.S. here right now, I think.
It's funny that I'm so tired, though, because I spent a lot of today asleep.
I know that feeling. Yeah, because I got up quite late. No, we don't have anybody in Central, we don't have anybody in Mountain.
Okay.
That's always the one we run short on. There's only like 2 people in the community who are in Mountain Time, and I can't even remember who now.
Yeah, I do not remember offhand.
Somebody's in Colorado.
Well, wait a minute. Is Jimmy in Colorado?
Yeah, actually, I think so.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. Right, but when you said that, I thought you were talking about like people who come into these streams.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's true. It's
I go so far as to say that
content, but I don't interact with him. He doesn't really know I exist. So,
well, I would go so far as to say that there are 2 atheist YouTube communities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is certainly a division.
I meant to ask, did anybody approach you about Faithless Forum this year?
No, despite telling them very, very, in no uncertain terms. I told them last year I'd like to be on a panel, but I've been looking at the speaker list, and guess who was snubbed again?
Yeah, it's like
I have decided to not go. In fact, I'm kind of divorcing myself from certain aspects of the YouTube atheist community just because it does sort of feel like I've been handed my hat and shown the door. So, it's like, you seem like a nice kid. Here's $1. Go play. So I'm kind of not, like, I'm trying not to make a huge deal out of it, although I've said it enough times in these streams, but because I know that if I tried to cause drama, they would decide I'm the villain of the piece. I know that's what's going on. So I am largely not talking about it unless someone brings it up.
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand. Yeah. I do not understand at all what is not to like about you. But
well,
I know I'm biased.
I do know part of it, actually. And part of it is just that some people have been very, 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 very angry about the fact that I insist babies are atheists.
Yep. I know that.
Whoa! Is that it? Is that all?
That's part of it. I don't know what the rest is, but I know that there are some people who are very vehemently against me on that one. And I remember there was a thing a while ago, and I forget how it got resolved, but Ocean Keltoy, he was prepared based on some of the stuff he'd heard to really dislike me. And then we had some interaction or other, probably through Surus, but I'm not sure, where he was like, I don't know where these rumors are coming from because Kate seems great. And now he and I are, if not actually friends, we're at least fairly on friendly terms.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe there's people out there who are hearing those who don't like me exclusively. Maybe that's all there is to it. I don't know.
Basically, I heard the same story from Ocean.
Yeah.
Pretty much in the same words that, he thought that there was some animosity between you two and didn't know where it started. And it turned out that, no, that was never there.
And the truth is, I barely even heard his name when we first encountered each other. And, now I think he's a pretty decent dude, even though I guess we're sort of on different sides on the whether or not something spiritual exists thing, but he's not an asshole about it. So
Yeah, memory serves me. He's a polytheist, is he not?
There were some rumors about
might
the
be
two of
true.
you had gotten in an argument at the last Faithless Forum.
Me and him? Not at all.
Yeah,
No.
well, that's where my understanding of it. That's where people thought it had started from.
I don't
know how those rumors got started, but
any dispute he and I might have had at some time ended long before the last Faithless Forum.
Yeah.
But well, I don't know.
And I don't know. I'm weird. I know I'm weird. You know I'm weird, but I don't see how a difference of opinion on something should drive a wedge between people to the point where there's no bridging the gap or anything.
I guess part of it is because I never gave even the tiniest scrap of ground on the matter, like not even a little bit. But then neither did anyone else on the other side. But apparently they thought it was up to me, especially because there were enough people badgering me about it to to give in to the popular view as far as they were concerned. And I was like, the logic is on my side here. Of course, part of it was also that you get people like Steve McRae, who insist that the using atheist to describe babies is not useful. But what I've come to realize is that the people on that side want to have formal debates, and therefore atheists have to take the counter position to theists, meaning that atheism has to be saying God does not exist, or at least consciously taking that position. Whereas I look at it as a kind of religious taxonomy, where it's like, how do we describe what we see?
Okay.
Is the way I was looking at it. And so when I was pointing that out, I actually did get a concession from one or two people where they're like, okay, within that context, it's useful. Like one or two people were willing to see my side of it, even if they continued to disagree with me, even if they continued to say that that's not the way atheists should be used. They at least saw my side of it, which sometimes is all I want from people.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I think you hit on a very pertinent point there about where the divide is. That, it does seem it's a big thing between the people who, want these very structured debates and these people, who are more interested in practical applications in their own life.
Yeah, this is where I have the problem with the word faith, is when the people are trying to have the debate with me. They're trying to tell me that I am just, the theists are trying to tell me that I'm just like they are. And this is where I sometimes wish that we had the more, what's the word I'm looking for? Definitive, descriptive, determinate language, where you had one word for the trust that the floor isn't going to fall through when I step on it. And that stupid thing where you give up all rationality to believe something that, has no,
Well, my favorite one is where I think George Carlin said it, but I'm not sure, where it's, you'll believe in God on faith, but you still have to touch the wall to see if the paint is dry.
I think that was Carlin. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like him.
And I mean, you get people who like I've had Christians say to me, why do you insist our faith is blind when you tell us it's not? And I say, because I'm describing what I see you doing.
Yes.
You can protest as much as you like, but when it comes down to it, when we actually break down what it is you're doing, your faith is clearly blind.
Yeah, or the Christians who argue that the scientific method requires more faith than believing in God.
Oh my! Oh, excuse me, please.
Well, and I ask them, where's the double or triple blind testing in religion? That is meant specifically to remove faith from the equation as much as you possibly can. That's what the scientific method does.
That's the thing with the whole babies or atheist thing. It's like, I understand what each point. They're using it as a position. You're using it as a descriptor.
Yeah.
And each side seems to insist that theirs is the proper usage, and that's where you end up with the troubles. If you
Well,
just say, "I understand that's how you're using it, that's not how I use it."
Well, and the thing is that I also explained to them that what they're trying to say can be said still with the way I insist on using the word atheist. All you have to do is modify it with adjectives. And now we know exactly what kind of atheist you're talking about. But I've noticed a lot of the folks on that side will not use the adjectives, that they want one word to describe something very specific and another completely different word to describe something else.
Yeah.
That's similar. Where it's like, strong atheist versus weak atheist. They want two separate words to describe those positions. And frankly, number one, those words don't exist. There aren't enough of them. But number two, what's so wrong with just adding an adjective? Two words versus one, but you can break it down more finely so you know exactly what someone means. That's why I describe myself as an agnostic, apistivist, atheist. That tells you everything you need to know about me if you know what those words mean in this context. But they won't do it. They refuse to do it. And I'm like, but if you did it the way I'm describing it, we could both be happy because we'd both be able to say what we're trying to say without confusion.
I think part of the problem is that our society is getting more and more to expecting very short answers that don't allow for descriptors, because you have like Twitter with the character limits and people texting who are trying to abbreviate all the words, and the media trying to put everything into 10-second sound bites. So if you have to use 3 words instead of 1, nobody wants to do that.
Well, I mean, as I understand it, Twitter became Twitter because people were being charged for text messages.
Yeah.
And so
Twitter has outgrown what it originally was designed to be.
I'm not sure I agree with that being the reason why. I think it's probably closer to a kind of social polarization. I mean, like you look at politics right now, and the divide has gotten wider and wider, where almost nobody's in the middle anymore. And it's very similar, I think, with how people think about a lot of other things, like word usage.
Was it you that posted earlier today about the increasing polarization?
Well, I mean, I probably did post about that, but a lot of other people did too. So,
okay, yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly how the thing read, but yeah, it was within the last 24 hours.
Well, I mean, given how much I post about politics these days, it wouldn't shock me to discover I said something like that. I'm sure I must have, but I know I'm not the only one who has.
Right.
So you could be talking about anybody. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, we have gotten very polarized right now, and it's I don't know.
Oh, no, I agree with you, and I think it has been overall to the detriment of everyone.
True.
Because people aren't even given the opportunity to explain themselves anymore.
And when you do, it doesn't matter, simply because people will insist that you defend the first thing you said. Even if they got it wrong, you have to defend even their first interpretation of the first thing you said. And by the time you've explained it, it's too late.
Yep.
Yeah, and they want you to say something before you yourself know what it is you want to say.
Yeah.
We've never seen that happen within the last, couple of years.
Oh, never. But I mean, there are a number of times where I've just simply refused to answer someone's question until they either give me context or explain exactly what they mean. There's even a point like, how a lot of times people will try to Socratic method you into agreeing with them. And they'll insist on yes/no answers to question, yes, no answers tends to have a lot more nuance to them. I mean, this was one of the basis of one of the arguments I had with Steve McRae before I told him to fuck off, was simply that he was trying to slow walk me to a conclusion. And every time I would say to him, no, there's nuance. I can't give you a yes, no on this because I don't want to end up saying something I don't mean simply because I gave too small an answer. And he wouldn't let it go. You know, he wouldn't accept it. And so I've gotten to a point now where if someone starts doing that to me, I say, look, if you have a point to make it. But I am not going to play your Socratic method games because they're always dishonest.
Oh, right. Yeah. As you say, especially with the one-word answer thing, because they will, they're practiced. They have the scripts, they've written them out, they've rehearsed them to get you set up the question and then to get you to answer it, and then soon enough you've said something totally opposite to your position. So
I won't even let them do it anymore.
No, I agree with you, and that's what, I have no interest in debates. I'm willing to have a discussion with anyone who wants to. But it's not about winning or losing. It should be about broadening your understanding.
Yeah, well, that to some people.
Well, okay, I'll go with broadening my understanding. I'd like to narrow a little bit more about me, but no, the understanding I'll broaden. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I want to broaden all of you. I'm just saying.
Yeah, there you go.
How did the word broad ever get to describe a woman anyway? Is it just, oh yeah, you're and huge and therefore you cover a broad area? I don't know.
I don't know. I really don't. Let's
maybe it had to do with hips.
This is the first thing I'm thinking.
That would be my first thought because, wider hips were seen as being a better breeder and more likely to bear a son.
Let's see. A term dating in the 1930s meaning woman derived from the fact that the most defining characteristic of all females are which are proportionally wider than the hips of their male counterparts. Well done.
I was right.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often.
Well, in that case, celebrate with a shot. I don't know. I have actually thought about trying to make like a theist drinking game or a theist bingo, where it's like you're watching video and you tick a bunch of boxes, and if you get a bingo, you win or whatever. They said that they used the Bible to try to prove the Bible. Check.
S.J. Thomason bingo.
Well, there's that.
I think there'd be 3 boxes in that one.
The only reason I might not try to do a theist bingo card is because I'm willing to bet someone somewhere would go, yeah, you watched their entire video and set up your bingo card to get a bingo, didn't you? The only way I could forestall that would be to use the same bingo card every video.
Well, you could actually probably get away with that, though.
Yeah, I was going to say their script is so standard. Yeah.
And then it's just a matter of do you get it on the horizontal or the vertical?
There you are. I mean, so many times I'm thinking that I could take the podium against William Lane Craig and hand him his arse because he's so fucking standard. I mean, I've seen so many of his debates that I know exactly what he's going to say and when he's going to say it.
Well, the whole Kalam cosmological argument that he loves.
Oh, Lord.
And the thing is, it's been debunked so many times that it has actually been rephrased. Like before, where there was that whole thing about, like anything that begins to exist has a cause. And then you start pointing out that begins to exist doesn't even make sense. And so they've actually changed the meaning of begin to exist, where now you've got like a ship of Theseus problem. Because the guy I was talking to and I did one live stream with him before I finally get fed up with him.
Him. Okay, yeah.
Tim, his name was. He tried to do this whole thing about how like a car has a carness to it. And so when all the components are put together to make a whole car, that's the car beginning to exist. So the actual existence of matter itself is not begins to exist. Because I kept pointing out that like matter doesn't begin to exist, it just gets put into a different form. So like when you begin to exist, the matter that makes up you was already there. Yeah. So you didn't begin to exist, all you did was change. But now, apparently, for the purposes of the Kalam cosmological argument, something begins to exist when it has an essential property.
Oh, God, that sounds so Catholic.
You know, that's the funny thing. Is like I was in a thread started by a godless mom, I think.
Oh, Courtney.
And Courtney. I was trying to. I couldn't think of her last name for her name for a minute. And it was basically something about, you know, is faith are people who have faith rational? And like I was arguing that yes, some people who have faith are rational. It's not contradictory to say that or to think that. And then some guy comes in, no sooner than I said this, and starts arguing that there is essentialness to things. And I'm just like, way to torpedo my discussion. You literally just started rambling like random. It was just weird.
I mean, there are definitely people who use faith who are selectively rational. You know, like they've compartmentalized, here's faith and I'm willing to be nutso on that, but the rest of my life I treat logically.
Well, the way I'll put it is, you know, come after him if you want to, the faith itself is not rational because it is not a product of reason.
Wow.
If you see where I'm coming from, you know, I will believe this simply because I believe it. Because I want to believe it, or because I need to believe it, or whatever it is. And yes, David Wolpe, I know. He's made the argument with, be careful that, you know, the atheist will assign to the religious their beliefs are emotional, and the atheist beliefs are, you know, schooled and rational. You know, screw you, David. But yeah, wherever I was going with that, it's the whole, you know, the process of reasoning and everything else. I will say, no, the holding a position on faith is not necessarily rational in the sense that it's a product of reason.
Well, I'd say that it's irrational largely because people will hold on to their faith in spite of contrary evidence.
Well, yeah, you're right in there with me. Yeah, definitely. And as you say, in other areas of their lives, they can be perfectly rational. Yeah, but not when it comes to these little things.
Well, this is one of the reasons why I object to people talking about things like worldviews, especially the atheist worldview. You know, like there's one sort of like dogma or doctrine to being an atheist, that there's like one worldview, the way there is for religions, where there's something that preaches how the entire world is meant to be viewed and all of that. That's why I've been, like, in the last year or two trying to say atheism is not even like a religion. It doesn't serve the same function.
Right,
and that's something that a lot of theists can't seem to wrap their brains around. Because I guess
you've noticed
their own lives are lived a certain way. They can't imagine any other way, I'm assuming.
Well, I think I've heard a couple theists say something to that effect, not realizing that they've said it, of course. But, you know, that they cannot imagine anything other than what they see the world as, if you'll excuse my shitty grammar.
Well, not just that. I mean, a lot of them think that everybody in the world has a God-shaped hole that needs to be filled with something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the idea that I don't need what they need, that they get from their religion, is so alien they can't fathom it.
And
Well, I think that really depends on the religious, because like when I speak of that, like I'm usually talking about the polytheists, because the polytheists generally don't, like, you'd be hard pressed to find a polytheist who's a creation, who's a like
Young
or
Earth
yeah, like
creation?
young Earth type things. You know, you won't find a polytheist that says my religion says that you're going to hell because you don't believe in it. You know,
Hmm.
and the issue that I generally tend to have with with the polytheists is that they take they seem to ignore or want to overstep the fact that when atheists are talking about religion and things like this, they don't pop into our minds. Like rarely do people who are railing against religion think of polytheists.
Well, that is something I talk about a lot in my own videos, where I say all the time, if theists can share and play nicely with the other kids, I'll shut up. And like, I've had people say, why don't you ever go after Jews? I'm like, most of the Jews I've ever met keep it to themselves. They can keep their religion in their pants, you know? So I don't have a problem with them, is why I don't like usually go after Jewish people unless they're behaving like Christians or Muslims. And then you get polytheists and pagans and Wiccans and whatever the hell else. And I realize Wiccans are kind of pagans too. They're like a subset of pagan. Don't get on me about that. But the point is that most of those people can behave themselves too. So I got no issue with them, even if I disagree with them philosophically. It's the ones who are making my life worse and other people's lives worse that are in my crosshairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But that's the point that I was. That's the thing that I was. The point that I was kind of making is that, you know, like, take Atheist Republic for example. Not the most nuanced Twitter account, and they're constantly making comments about religion, and you know how I mean, you've seen their memes and things.
Yeah, they're on the bad side of a lot of people. Yeah.
And it's like, but the problem that I generally have is when people rail against them, or when it's not Christians, when it's polytheists, they're like, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, you don't even cross their minds. I mean, I'm not trying to be insulting, but the meme that they've written that you don't like, that you're railing against, does not apply to you, because they're not even considering you as you're not a threat to the atheist community. You're more of an ally than most Christians. And so, like, when you go in there and you get all offended by the meme, you're in a way helping the Christians.
Well, and even years ago when I was a pagan, I was trying to convince the people in the pagan community, that making an alliance with the atheists made a lot of sense, because it was going to achieve the same objectives of keeping people from teaching the Bible in schools.
Yeah, you may be coming from two different street corners, but you're going to end up being down the same boulevard sooner or later. Yeah.
Well, I mean, part of the problem is that a lot of atheists are seen as antagonists, as the enemy. And I understand why, but at the same time, there are a lot of people to whom most of us, at least, would be willing to be allies, even though we disagree philosophically on whether or not even the supernatural exists. And that's another thing I have to keep pointing out, though, is that an atheist can totally believe in the supernatural as long as they don't believe in any gods. If I honestly, genuinely believed in the Force or some non-Star Wars equivalent, but didn't believe in any gods, I'm still an atheist. But the mental image is that atheists have to be complete and total materialists.
Yeah, there isn't any reason an atheist can't believe that people have a soul and that maybe there are ghosts because some people hang around after they're dead. You can believe that and still be an atheist.
Yeah, oh, totally. And don't get me wrong, I think it'd be very interesting if there was an afterlife. And I don't really like the idea of me ending, but I have to bow to the evidence far more than I will ever bow to my desires, needs, fears, whatever.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's like, you know, I still like the idea, and I kind of hope that reincarnation is real. But yeah, I haven't seen any evidence that would really support that.
Well, one thing that amuses me, and I brought this up a couple of times, but not today, is that when people who believe in reincarnation talk about it, they always seem to assume they'll be reincarnated on this planet.
Right. And what's to say that they won't be reincarnated in another planet, in another galaxy? And
Actually, that's a point I've been making since the 80s. That you should be able to be reincarnated on any planet that can support life. There's no reason it has to be Earth every time.
That would
and here's the other thing. I mean,
story, like sort of a sci-fi fantasy-ish thing, where like you get someone who realize like completely alien planet, and someone realizes somehow through some fluke, I used to be a human on Earth, and maybe everyone thinks they're nuts or something. Except maybe they all believe in reincarnation. They just didn't realize, like, this is the first person to be reincarnated on their planet who wasn't from their planet.
Well, I actually came to that conclusion, again, when I was a pagan, you know, more believing in this stuff, because I had some really bizarre, surrealistic dreams that I came to the conclusion were actually past life memories that just didn't make any sense because I had absolutely no cultural context for them.
I've had some pretty screwy dreams. Not like I don't remember my dreams as much anymore, but when I was a kid, I had a bunch that just stuck with me forever. And some of them were pretty, I'm gonna say alien, but I don't necessarily mean extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
Some of them were pretty esoteric, some of them even supernatural, and they've stuck with me since forever.
Yeah,
and maybe someday I'll try to incorporate them into some of the fiction I've been working on, but I don't know.
Well, I've never actually tried any hard drugs, but I'm talking about dreams that are akin to how people describe an LSD trip.
I've never taken enough LSD to really trip exactly like the world got weird. But I don't feel like I was taken on some psychedelic journey that some people describe.
Oh, what? Were you doing like a quarter hit or something?
Something, I don't know. I mean, I honestly really legitimately don't know like what qualifies as a hit of acid. But I mean, like, yeah, the world looked sort of like it was underwater. Everything was all wavy and weird. And I guess I felt a little extra warm or something, you know, but I didn't like go full on trip out city. You know what I mean? Like I didn't look around and everything was growing eyes with fingers on them and shit. You know, that didn't happen.
Hey, Sammy.
Oh, there's a kittiness. Hi, kittiness.
Yep, Sammy climbed up.
Adorable little monster.
Yep, that's my Sammy-san. He is my bestest pal in the whole world.
Yeah.
Never talks back.
Wait a minute. Looking at this here, all four of us must be cat people.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
after
I had said a long
like
time ago that we should do a stream that we just all put our cats up on the camera and see how long it takes the people in the side chat to figure out who's who.
You kitty.
I don't currently have a kitty though.
oh,
I have ferrets right now.
Okay, the ferrets would kind of give you away then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, pirate kitty's just a moniker I've had since like 2004.
Okay, you come here.
It was a gag a friend of mine and I did because he was Ninja Puppy and I was Pirate Kitty.
Okay.
you know, it's funny now I think about it. Like, I seem to remember someone a while back describing like atheists and Christians as cats and dogs, where, you know, cats are very independent, where dogs are very obedient, you know?
I could see it.
Well, I founded the Church of the Cephalopod, which is it's what you would get if Cthulhu was a pacifist. But that's I say instead of dogma, we've got Katma, which is doctrine that we know in advance everyone's going to ignore.
Okay. We have this
My
tale.
karma ran over my dogma. Anyway, I'll just put over here.
Okay, yeah, that's an old one.
Yeah. That one's probably older than me.
Probably older than me.
Well, but you know, I do believe in karma in a sense, because it does not actually require any type of spiritual or supernatural connection of any sort. It's the very simple concept that, you know, if you're nice to people when you need help, people will help you out. Like the fact that I managed to move here. If you act like an asshole on moving day, there isn't going to be anyone to lift up the other end of the couch, and you're going to have to drag it up 3 flights of stairs on your own.
Or hire someone.
No.
But yeah, I mean, the problem is that if you ask 5 different people about karma, you'll get 7 different answers.
Yeah.
And, you know, because there's those people who say like, well, if I do a really nice thing, that at some point I'll get some celestial reward for it. Where other people are like, yeah, except it deals with like your next life. You get this, that, or the other thing. And then like you ask Christians about heaven. And I mean, I always thought that it was do good deeds, get into heaven. But now it turns out you could be Jeffrey Dahmer and then repent right before you die. And now you go into heaven. Whereas the nicest atheist in the world goes to hell because they didn't pledge their loyalty and all of that shit. You know, but then I have encountered Christians who say, no, that shit's not true. If you're good, you get into heaven, even if you're not Christian and all this stuff. And it's like, you know, you cannot get a straight answer out of anybody.
Well, that all depends on which branch of Christians you're talking to.
Yeah, you've got the Catholics, for example, who are all about works. They do not hold to the faith is all that is. You know, you can believe, but if you don't do the good stuff, then you're still screwed. Or, you know, that sort of thing.
And then you get the people who insist that like sacrifices are necessary, that self-sacrifice is necessary. Like you get the guys who do
Catholics again.
You get the guys who do the self-flagellation and shit.
Oh Lord!
You know,
so many of them are Catholics. That's the
and
thing.
I do wonder about people who insist on fasting. And I'm just like, these gods are so vindictive. And I'm not even sure vindictive is the right word, but they like basically pledging yourself to a deity is very similar to pledging to a frat, where you get a lot of the thank you, sir, may I have another in one form or another, to show your loyalty to God. I will make my life worse to prove how loyal I am to God. I like you so much that I'm going to do horrible things to me in your name. It's stupid.
Yes, I don't understand where these people derive the pleasure, if you will, or the good stuff from it. But then again, I'm not one of these masochists that likes the pain. Maybe that's what they are like. I don't know.
Well, I mean, even just shit like fasting.
And then Opus Dei gets really bad. That's a group within the work of God is the way it translates. These are the people who have the devices that they will wear under their clothing to rip their flesh apart of the thighs and all this other bullshit.
Well, okay, my first thought when someone says opus is a penguin, my second thought is like a work of music, you know, the magnum opus and all that stuff. It takes a while for me to think of anything religious when someone says opus.
Okay.
Yeah, I ended up
the same
thinking of
place
Mr.
with
Holland's
you.
Opus.
Sorry, what was that?
I said I started thinking about Mr. Holland's Opus.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yep. I'm with you, Kate. The religious reference isn't until about the 5th or 6th step down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. About a half hour ago, we were saying we need to go to bed.
Yep, and that's very typical for my streams.
We're all
It
just
usually takes a half an hour to an hour between when I say we should shut down and when we can actually sign off.
Yeah, you have to build that into the announcement that we're shutting down, right?
So yeah, we actually should
we're
go
all just
around
too
here.
Interesting.
Yeah, we actually should go around here and, does anybody have anything coming up they want to plug?
No.
Well, I just finished a new green screen background it took almost a week to render it. It's 4 minutes long of CGI. I think people will find it entertaining,
Cool.
but I don't know. So in my next video, that'll be my green screen background.
I'd definitely be looking for that.
Yay.
Yeah, I had originally planned on doing a green screen for these, but since I wound up having so much trouble just getting a camera to work, I didn't have a chance to experiment with that.
Yeah.
I'll get around to that stuff one of these days, but not today. I've got more stuff to take care of before I start doing that.
I could go off for like at least 15-20 minutes on how to properly use a green screen, because there are so many ways to fuck that up.
Oh my goodness! I was trying to watch a group of guys doing a green screen, and for some reason, instead of just having the green screen, they tried to make it so that the green screen would hide their headphones. And so, like, it was the weirdest thing. But like every time they moved, things would change on their head because the green screen was trying to compensate for their headphones. It was really distracting, and I eventually had to stop watching the stream because I'm just like, I can't. This is.
But why even bother? Why is that important to not look like you're wearing headphones?
Wouldn't it be easier to buy a set of earbuds? I mean, really?
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, this morning I was not feeling so well. I've mentioned this. If I'm still not feeling well tomorrow and I feel like I'm at the other side of it, I might actually be there for movie night.
Oh, wow. What, on panel?
No, just present for it. See,
okay.
Remember last week they had to cancel it due to life happening. Well, that was not my game night, because I do an every other Friday night game night, and I've got a game night coming up this Friday, right? But if I'm still ill, I'll have to stay home. So why not do movie night? Why
not stay home and get drunk?
Right.
There you go.
It would be neat to be on the panel, what Doorknob Head is saying. But then again, when the videos are very scientific, I mean, there's a reason I mostly cover on my videos like logical mistakes people are making, rather than talking about like eukaryotic cells or whatever, because there's other people who are good at that stuff. And a lot of the videos that I've noticed on the movie nights I've been there for, most of them are about scientific inaccuracy, rather than someone saying something really illogical about like whatever. Like the sort of stuff I usually cover in my videos doesn't seem to be the kind of stuff that gets covered much on movie night.
Well, so, you tend to go after more philosophical stuff. But,
exactly.
You can, most of the movie nights, you can pick some pretty serious logic flaws in them.
But I mean, I'm not sure how useful I would be on the panel, and after a while, I might start to get a little grouchy with Tornado. So,
there's always that.
I'm not on the movie night panel, as much as it might be fun, as much as it'd be fun to have people watching, because you know how I like to talk. But I'm not sure I would be a good fit for movie night panels.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. And well, I have to get to movie night again because I haven't been on the panel for a while. My problem is sleep deprivation because those things start and then they go and they go and they go and they go. used to be they would start at midnight, and it might be 10 or 11 a.m. by the time I was getting to bed.
Yeah.
Now the time has shifted a little bit, but it's the same sort of thing. So I'd be asleep all day Saturday, and I've got to get ready for a Sunday show and everything. And it's like, ah!
So, yeah. I don't know. There have been times I've seriously thought about starting to do Quiplash nights because I love Quiplash. Very fun. And I have, like, I bought it off of Steam. I just keep forgetting to do it. Kind of like I've actually been meaning to get out more.
Yeah.
I loved going to the Mercury in Seattle. It was a goth club. And I haven't found anywhere like that in San Diego. But it's a really good way to meet people and make friends. And I need to make more in-person friends. But I just keep forgetting to go. I get absorbed in something and I'm like, shit, it's midnight. I can't really go out drinking now, can I? So I got to remind myself to go out. Much like I need to remind myself to do a Quiplash night. Well, that, and I haven't really been doing very many live streams on my own channel. And so I need to like talk to you, Diana, maybe about some of the technical aspects of all of that. I mean, I think I can do it myself, but I haven't tried yet. So.
Well, with StreamYard, it's real easy to run it.
Yeah, StreamYard is a lead pipe cinch. It really is.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing with this stuff, and it's like, yeah.
Now, are they still limiting the number of hours you can?
Yeah, a free account is still limited to 20 hours per month.
Oh.
Okay.
But you can get paid accounts, and there are
other ways that we probably should talk about. Wow,
things I won't go into while we're on the air, but I could help you out with some other ideas.
Well, one thing I would very much like to try to do, because the Quiplash nights I've been in, nobody can really hear Quiplash itself. You know, like you don't hear the cheering and the like announcer dude reading the question off and all of that stuff. And I'd love to try to use OBS to make that part of the stream.
Yeah, now there's the interesting thing about that. I'm trying to remember if OBS will actually do that for you, or if you have to. Oh, it will. Okay, because
I've done like video game streams on my alternate channel, and part of it was like OBS showing the VR game I'm playing, plus a smaller window of my camera showing me playing it. So OBS will totally do that.
Oh yeah, you just have to. You can set up OBS to show multiple windows, so you can have it. You can have the main window being what you're streaming in, and you can have a smaller window that is the source for your camera and stuff like that. That's not too hard to do with OBS.
Well, that I do, yeah.
And making the sound of the game and the sound of your mic both being used is easy too.
That's the one I'm still trying to work on because my system crashed the last time I tried to do that. When I had a couple people on the panel, and then when Tornado came on, everything crashed.
Well, duh. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't rag on him because I know it's not his fault, but at the same time,
he does go off on tangents, which can get to be a little difficult.
Well, and he also gets a smidge emotional at times when it's really not warranted. You know, like I'm watching movie night and someone will say something stupid enough times and he starts screaming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, we had that whole F scale for him. Yeah, this is where that came from. You know, he'd start out at an F0, and we're all, okay, are we going to be an F6 before the night's over? And a whole bit like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, man.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get down on him too hard, but.
And then there are those times when he's not exactly comprehending the implications of things he says.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I mean, okay, let's face it, both he and I make jokes that don't land, but I recognize when they don't land, take a slightly self-deprecating stance and let it go. But when his joke doesn't land, he keeps trying to tell it and tell it and tell it until someone laughs.
Yeah.
Mhm. You're supposed to laugh. You're not laughing. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to laugh, kiddo.
Well, I mean, the number of times I've basically just had to say to him, "Yep, we got the joke. It wasn't funny." And I don't want to do that. Damn it, it's not fair to do that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are running a stream, and he's kind of.
He's a sweet kid. I love him dearly.
Yeah,
I really
and that's
do.
See, I can understand, enough with the autism that I understand how it happens for him. I have no idea how to help rein it in. But I can kind of see his perspective, and I can also see, why he doesn't get some of the connections, or why some of the stuff just goes right past him.
Yeah, and it's
because probably 30 years ago, that's probably where I was, and it's taken me a lot of time and a lot of therapy to get to a higher functioning level.
I mean, Tina and I have talked about this, and it was after I came to you for a little bit. Your idea of, your thoughts about that. There was that thing when he kind of opened his mouth and said the wrong thing. And I'm thinking, oh, Jesus Christ, do I ban him from the channel or something? So Tina and I were talking about that, and the thing was that she actually said that, okay, she could get him to realize what's going on, and it would last for about 2 weeks. And then he'd slip back into it again. And I'm thinking, geez, if he opens his mouth and says the wrong thing, I've got a show to worry about. I could lose all my credibility on his comment. I'm selfish. I'm thinking about that.
Well, it's not really selfish exactly. But I don't know. I mean, I someday I think I should probably actually get my own darn self tested. I'm probably on the spectrum somewhere. I mean, I took an online quiz, and obviously those are not official and not really
right. Yeah.
But I was like 1 percentage point away from autism or something like they had a scale, and they said, well, if you hit like 65%, and I'm like, yeah, I hit 64. So it wouldn't be horrible to get myself tested. I'm not sure what benefit I would derive from that, though.
There's where I was gonna say,
yeah.
Well, that's
if it's not
the point, it's like, I got some help for it, but at this point, I think it's taken me about as far as therapy can, and I know there's still some things I'm really weak in, especially, reading other people and that. But I don't think it's something that, further therapy or that is going to be able to improve.
And then, Kate, if it's not getting in the way of, life, universe, and everything with you, then maybe, it's something that you can just set aside for a while.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, maybe it is. I mean, we've talked earlier about a lot of people don't like me for various reasons. And it might be that I've been saying things in a way that don't land with people and maybe make me seem off or wrong or awful somehow. I mean, I don't know. Because I know my reactions to some of the stuff that Tornado says or does. And I've told you before that in some ways I see a little bit of myself in him.
Yeah.
Muted quite a bit. But still, I mean, I've seen some of the things he said and the reasons why he says them. And I'm like, I could have done that if my personality was magnified 5 times. So, I mean, maybe some of my bad rep out there on the atheist community is just because I was acting in an autistic way. You know, I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
Like, if nothing else, it might explain a lot of some of the social problems I have had through my life. So, I mean, again, I don't know what good that information would do me. I don't know if
Well,
it would benefit in any way, but it might be nice to know regardless.
Well, it could help in that, you know, in that weird way that, you know, people are assholes, and, you know, if they just think that you're, you know, rude or whatever, they'll take it differently when they're like, "Oh, yeah, she's on the spectrum, so we give her more leeway for the things that like." Yeah, I can't like that. I mean, I don't have examples because I don't.
Well, I get what you mean, though.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe it would be a good idea, especially if I could get it done without it costing anything.
Well, there was
That's
the
a
other
very
thing I was going to say. Yeah, if you could get it without shelling out dollars, you know,
Well-
that would be really
Well,
great.
I do have to go to like a doctor appointment soon, and maybe I'll ask.
If you do decide to do it,
Hmm.
I would recommend that you take the results from the online quiz in with you when you meet a therapist, because that could give them a good starting point.
True. Okay. Well, I mean, I can try that. I don't know.
would never
Maybe they
have
won't
been
care.
diagnosed if it wasn't for taking an online quiz like that.
Hmm.
Because it's like that was when I was in like my mid-30s that I took one of those, and I just showed it to like everyone who had known me for more than 2 years, and the universal response was, "Oh, that explains a lot."
Hmm.
So then I took that into my therapist and said, "You know, well, how come we've never talked about this?" And he went through the DMV or the whatever, the diagnostic
DSM.
manual. Yeah, sorry. The diagnostic manual, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I guess you do show a lot of those traits."
Yeah. Well, something to consider anyway. So I am very hungry at this point. I think I'm gonna. Besides, we just hit the 3-hour mark.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I'm
pretty
sorry,
much.
the window to close down has been lost because, you know, I now have a cat on my leg, so I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna get some eat and some eat and some sleep, some food and some sleep. I will catch you, evil geniuses, later. It was fun to be part of the stream, though. I'm glad that you managed to get your move done and you're there safely and soundly, and I hope
Yeah.
everything goes well.
Well, it's, you know, all of the things that are immediate have been taken care of. So, you know, we're okay here. It may take a while before I get things organized and find everything that's in all the boxes, but that's okay. You know, if that gets dragged out for a while, that's all right at this point. My body needs a little time to recover before I do much more of shifting the boxes around.
Well, anyway, I'll catch you later. Have fun. Don't get caught. Have fun storming the castle. All of that.
Night, Kate.
All right. Okay. So
I
Diana,
wonder how many
Oh,
people. No, well, in this audience, I'm pretty sure everybody would have got that reference.
yeah, I think so here. So Diana, do you have something lined up for Sunday?
Don't have any solid ideas on topic or anything like that. I'm half tempted to do something about the letdown, the political letdown, but I've been doing so much politics lately. I don't know if everybody's getting sick of hearing it. So,
Well,
we'll just have
unfortunately, with the politics, I think the DNC is doing what a lot of people had predicted, and it's just getting everyone depressed because it's like, we saw this coming and we know this isn't going to work.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people say, okay, well, DNC, you do this and welcome to 4 more years of Trump. I cannot say that it'll be welcome to 4 more years of Trump. I'm taking the, what do you want to call it, the defeatist view or whatever, that it's done. We're finished. But
Yeah. Well, I still see a possibility, but yeah, it's kind of like the percentage chance of, this turning out in any way that's going to help anyone who's not already a millionaire is not looking good.
yeah, because so much of the so many. Who was it in the that wrote in the Washington Post? So many of the traditions, so many of the ways things had been done, have been destroyed.
Yeah.
And there's nothing left to process anymore.
Well, and even the chance to rebuild any kind of structure.
Yeah.
That there could be any kind of bipartisan agreements or anything that's not split on party lines is just getting further and further away.
Yeah, there was the other person, and I wish I could remember who that was, who wrote that they do not see any legislation being advanced unless there's a straight ticket. House, Senate, and White House are all the same party.
Yeah.
And I don't see the Democrats ever doing that anymore. So we're just sinking further and further into totalitarianism. So what are you going to? I had a pretty good run. So maybe it's time to bring the curtain down. Let another show open.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm at this point fairly convinced that I'm going to be around here for another 5 decades, so I can't give up on it that easily. I don't know anything I can do about it, but I can't just resign myself to that's all there's going to be. I'm not a young man, but I've got a lot of conditions, but none of them are going to progress into anything that's likely to be fatal. So I actually, I'm going to have a lot of complaints, but I still think I've got better than average odds of beating 100.
I wouldn't even want to beat 100 anymore.
Yeah, at this point, it's not seeming as encouraging a prospect as it used to be, but so, I'm not an organizer. I can't do things myself. So I just got to hope that I can, find some groups that have the potential to get something done. I can help out, but I can't get anything started.
Oh, Lord.
Anyway, that's a pretty down note.
No, I don't know what I just said.
But yes. You don't, but the cats do.
Yes. Well, we got the kittiness over there who is all curled up in the blanket, and she's all night-night.
Well, I'm still trying to find someone in Canada who could provide me sanctuary. I am still willing to try to row a canoe across Lake Superior for that. Mind you, people, this is the lake that took down the Edmund Fitzgerald. I'm still willing to risk it.
Oh, my. I can't think of any place to go that actually wants me.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much the situation I'm stuck in, that any country I would go to will not let me go there unless somebody has guaranteed me a job before I get there.
That's a pretty tough one when you're a handyman, isn't it?
Yeah. That's the thing. It's, got to be somebody who's basically guaranteeing that they're going to give me a job at least for several years. And generally, my business doesn't work that way. I generally, get a job that's going to be done in a couple of days to a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even here, I'm kind of handicapped by that. I've got my tools, but I don't have a space to work in. So how much I can do is going to be somewhat limited. You can't do a lot with running power tools in an apartment building without getting the neighbors ticked off. So I've got some ideas for that. So, I'll see what I can develop over the next several months. See if I might be able to, get a bit of garage or warehouse space that I can at least use for occasional projects.
Yeah, that's what I've wished, is that there could be, and nobody has it around here, workshop space where you could rent, a few hundred square feet and have whatever tools you need, on a full-time basis and that sort of thing. And get back into cabinetry, but
an effective way I had found for getting some projects done when I didn't have any space to work was checking out community education programs. Because I had found a number of them in different cities that had programs that basically you could get in there and, like, in the high schools, like, use the wood shop at night. That they would have an instructor there and, a limited number of people that they would let come in there and use the equipment.
okay then. Because
So
I
yeah,
think
that's
I
one
mentioned
of the things I've got to look into here if there's a program like that available around here.
I think I've mentioned bookcases before. It would be nice if I
Yep.
could build, because I could buy if I had $1,200.
Yeah.
Plus the shipping charge.
Mhm.
But what to do?
Yeah.
Isn't
Well,
not
at this point, it's like, all the ones I had at my other apartment, I broke them down flat and I brought them with me. So some of them need, some new parts made. Some of them need to be resized to fit the spaces. So it's basically, I've got the tools and materials. I need to have some place that I can, run a power saw for a couple of hours without somebody getting upset about the noise level.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I got some ideas. I'll just have to see what works out here.
Wait a minute. Doorknob Head says the hair rinse reminds me of liver. What?
Yeah, I was looking at the one a little further up there. A room that smells like 1980s PCs and sweaty nuts. Yeah, I missed something there. I'm not sure what the references were to. And considering it's a Doorknob Head, I'm not sure I want to know.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm just thinking of sweaty balls here, but that's beside the point. Yeah, well, you do a damn good job of that there, Doorknob.
Yep. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm going to shut this down for tonight. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate you coming.
Well, yes, stop by my place Sunday at noon Eastern and say hi to me, and we'll think of something.
Yep. And as I've mentioned, I'm probably not going to really make a regular habit of doing the live broadcasts. I still probably be using the avatar most of the time.
Oh, okay.
You know,
You know, it's nice to be able to go live, but you know, you end up with those instances where, oh my gosh, my nose itches, I gotta pick it, or something like
Yeah.
that, and you can't do that because you're on camera.
well, and just one of the things that occurred to me, it wasn't a big deal, but just before I went live tonight, yeah, I didn't think about what I was wearing before the broadcast. That's never been a consideration, and it's like, this isn't really the shirt that I would have chosen. I've got a collection of T-shirts from various atheist YouTubers. I would have picked one of those.
Hmm. Well, we can barely see your shirt anyway, so.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing that it's just having to actually think about how I look before I start a chat. I generally don't really pay attention to how I look before I leave the house. I just make sure that I'm not going to get arrested.
Okay then. Yeah.
So, okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Enjoy, kids.